From today, he will perform the duties of the court blacksmith. The hero put in a lot of effort to fulfill the dream of becoming the best blacksmith in the world. The sakura was in full bloom. It seemed she greeted him. The boy will do everything to prove that he is worthy. A girl approached him and asked if he was a blacksmith. She had a beautiful voice. She looked like an aristocrat. The hero said he was a blacksmith and asked how she found out. The girl replied that a certificate was peeking out of his pocket. A little more and it would have fallen out. Without it, the hero could not work. He thanked her. The girl said it was nothing and added that he was too young to be a blacksmith. The man said he was starting work today and that his name was Fake. The hero said he had rehearsed and asked not to judge him harshly. The girl replied that everything was fine and that he was very kind. She said that her name was Alicia. The girl confirmed that she was from the aristocrats, but he did not need to observe formalities. She said that she was supposed to be at the ball, but many men were seeking her attention, so she ran away. Alicia asked if he knew what he wanted to become, and said that she herself was not sure and did not understand what she really wanted, but really wanted to find out. Fake replied that he wanted to become the best blacksmith in the world. He knows that achieving this will not be easy, but he will do everything possible. The girl said that he would become it, and hoped that he would become the best blacksmith in the world. The main character did not expect such open support from her. Before, he was only mocked for this. Since he now serves at the court, he will often meet charming ladies. Maybe someday he will even get married. The boy decided to start with a greeting. The first impression is very important. He said good morning. The man sharply told him to get to work. He told him to fix the sword and not to leave until he finished. The colorful life at the court, which the hero imagined, was about to collapse. 3 years had passed since he started working as a court blacksmith. His main duty was the restoration of weapons. The boy was a blacksmith in the village, but his talent was quickly noticed and he got to the court, was full of hopes and improved the craft he dreamed of. But reality turned out to be completely different. Morgan told him not to delay. The boy apologized to him. The man said that it would not help because he was incompetent due to a mistake, for which money would be deducted from his monthly salary. The hero wanted to say something, but the blacksmith did not allow him. That boy did not dare to object. Usually, a whole forge would work with such a large amount of ammunition, but everyone relied only on him. It seemed he was really being punished for quarreling with that boy. The man said he tried to teach him. The main character was there for 3 years, but he was constantly angry and had already gotten used to the pain. They were right, he was not yet ready to join the workshop. He still lacked enough skills, so they were dissatisfied and beat him. So his salary and days off did not decrease, and it was all his fault. The boy was asked if he had thought about his behavior, and if he had, he needed to leave because all the weapons had to be ready by the end of the holidays. The boy said he understood. The man said they were invited to a ball, so the hero should not avoid it and must diligently do his job. One of them said that guests from the neighboring state had not visited the girl for a long time. They were supposed to join them at the celebration, and the lady needed to be properly greeted. Faye had a lot of work, and if he did not finish by the end of the week, he would have to work at night. Tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, he was supposed to have days off. A little rest would be good, but first he needed to finish the weapons to manage to hand them over to the knights, so rest would have to be postponed. Even if he managed by Monday, a new work week would begin and he needed at least 1 day of rest, but he could no longer take it. If he were not so incompetent, he would have finished everything much earlier. Blacksmiths have 2 main duties. The first is to make weapons, the second is to cast spells. Enchanting makes the sword sharper and stronger, so it does not require additional care and does not rust. This is also a magical effect, but the spell lasts about a week, so every week a large amount of weapons comes to the blacksmith. Enchanting is not difficult. The first step is to familiarize yourself with the contents of the weapon magic code. To do this, open the special window. All the information will be there. The correction is performed by magical power. Enchantments are made by changing or adding magical symbols. If you handle the weapon carelessly or do not restore it for a long time, the symbols will wear off. If the enchantment on the sword still holds, you only need to refresh them, but if they have completely disappeared, apply them again. The hero felt good. He sensed a pleasant smell and something warm and soft. He did not understand what it was and could not believe he had fallen asleep. This way he will not manage to finish the work. The girl said she was in pain, and the boy was surprised by her presence. He began to apologize to her repeatedly. It seems she was interested in blacksmithing, because every time she received an invitation to the ball, she came to him. Yesterday, Mr. Morgan discussed with others that Lady Alicia was invited. The impostor did not even change clothes, remained in his work uniform, and did not wash. The girl asked what happened and said that if he slept here, he would catch a cold. The hero said that he was fine, the ball was already over, and probably the girl stayed overnight and decided to visit him before leaving. In any case, he was supposed to finish his work yesterday. He remembers little, but it seems he did everything that was required. Alicia said he was very pale and asked how he was feeling. Mr. Morgan slapped him yesterday, but usually he didn't have bruises. He was probably irritated because of his behavior yesterday. Nothing good awaited him. He liked Alicia, although he understood that her status was different. He wouldn't get her, even if he tried very hard. But still, I wanted to at least look decent in her eyes. He didn't want her to consider him pathetic. The guy wanted to make a good impression on her as a man. The girl saw that he was in pain and said she was very sorry that she couldn't heal him, and the hero asked her not to worry, apologized, and said that he still had many things to do and didn't even have time to treat her to tea. She told him not to worry and asked to see how he worked, and the main hero replied that he didn't mind. One character disappeared. On one sword, the marks disappeared. The girl said that she thought he was very skillful and meticulous in his work. There were many weapons there, and she asked if he enchanted them all by himself. She said that it must be difficult and asked if all blacksmiths worked like that. The hero replied that he was at the lowest level. If he couldn't handle even this, then he might as well forget about the dream of becoming a better master. Alicia said she didn't know that the path of a blacksmith was so thorny and that his work deserved respect, like that of a court armorer. The guy said there was nothing special about it, and he still lacked experience. The girl said that he was wonderful because he could do so much on his own. According to others, he was simply incompetent. She asked him to share with her what was bothering him, and if he did not say, she would not let him go. He was ashamed, but he still told her about that incident. When he tried to stop, he failed. He had never shared this with anyone before. She was the daughter of a duke, and he did not know if he had the right to behave like that around her. The boy said it was his fault that he had no talent and that they were just trying to teach him. She said that was nonsense. Alicia said she should have asked earlier. The hero said he had to apologize because he had told too much. His tears flowed again, and he did not want her to see him so pitiful. A man burst into the room, called him incompetent, and ordered him to quickly enchant the sword. It was one of the knights. He was surprised that the Duchess was there. Usually the hero would have already been beaten with fists, but this time everything was different, and it was entirely the girl's merit. The boy was asked to enchant the sword. The sword was used very carelessly. The spell was cast only a few days ago, and it is already almost destroyed. The hero told the knight to be more careful from now on, because the enchantment is significantly damaged. The man said that it was because an incompetent person imposed it. The fraudster replied that he cast quite powerful spells, but the material for making simple knightly swords was not the best. In this regard, the capabilities of the diagrams are also limited, and if you get distracted in battle, the magical structure will be disrupted. Restoration completed. The sword was functional and ready for use. Knight invited the girl to go with him to the embankment and said he would show her the surroundings, but Alicia refused and wished him all the best. She asked the main hero if he often faced such an attitude, and the boy thought that next to the girl he liked, he could not even maintain his dignity. Alicia said that he should not stress so much because it would harm his health. The main hero said that if he could not cope with his work at the court, he would not be able to work anywhere else, because his license would be revoked. Honestly, he had already tried to leave. After a year of work, he told Lord Morgan that he could not continue like this and asked to be dismissed. He threatened that if the hero left, he would annul his blacksmith license. Without a license, he would not be able to practice the craft. Even if the secret continued to work, if exposed, he would be arrested for illegal activity. The girl said that she actually came to offer him something. She asked him to marry her. The hero did not believe that she meant that a man and a woman lived together, but the girl confirmed it, and in the end, it turned out to be so. She said that she did not mean anything like that. Many men tried to marry her, but she did not want to marry any of them, so she needed him as a cover. The main heroine was a blacksmith, like her father, and she thought she could convince him. A girl from a family of blacksmiths. Her ancestors gave the king a sword, which is now considered a national treasure, and for this they were given a title to rise in service and become nobles. Her father worked hard. The hero asked what he should do with it. The girl said that there must always be a blacksmith in their family. One of the family members must have the talent for forging in their blood. This means that it is not about blood. If innate talent is inherited, he can marry whoever he wants. The girl asked him to become her fiancé. She said that she had many suitors around her and was very tired of their attention, so she only wanted to marry when she met the one she truly loved, and until then she asked her fiancé to scare others away. Moreover, if he goes with her to her native country, she will make sure he gets a new license, and then no one else will be able to torture him, so the offer is beneficial to both. The hero said that he lacks talent, so he is afraid that he will not be able to help her in any way. She said that this is not true, and that she had seen him at work and always considered him the most talented of all the blacksmiths. The girl said that the matter was not only about talent, but also about his diligence and persistent work. That is what she liked about him. He tried not to look at her that way. He was one step away from misunderstanding everything. The boy asked her how she thought it should be. The girl decided that it was better to become a fake bride than to marry a stranger. The hero thought that it was not so easy to say, and she confused him. It is just a pretense. In fact, the girl most likely did not want such a relationship with him, but she felt sorry for the man who had nowhere to go, so she chose him. Even if they were not destined to marry, he could find happiness living with her as a blacksmith. He said that if she was really sure, he would become her fiancé. Alice said that in that case there would be another ball today, and then they would go to her home. The hero said he understood and asked what time the departure was scheduled. He would have to be released. The man did not know if he could just leave like that. He was told that in case of dismissal, he had to give 2 weeks' notice. Last time he mentioned it, he was beaten badly, but this time he has a girl and they will figure something out. She asked me not to call her lady anymore. Since he is now her fiancé, his status does not matter, so they should address each other without titles. The main hero said, in other words, that he was sincere, could no longer, and wanted to resign himself. The man began to get very angry and said that he had put a lot of effort into creating the main character. Other men began to say that they had put a lot of effort into him, taught him manners, and that no one needed him and he had nowhere to go. Before, it never occurred to him to object, he just remained silent, but he promised Alicia and now he cannot refuse. That man asked to be allowed to leave because he could no longer cope with the work, and the blacksmith asked if he had another job in mind and what he would do if he left. The man asked to see his identification. He completely criticized her and said that that guy was no longer a blacksmith and would no longer be able to work in that country. He was told not to hope for the restoration of the identification because its issuance was their business, and if he wanted to get it back, he had to stay and work for them. He thought that he was already tired of this country, and there was no point in having an identification if it meant nothing there. The blacksmith said that if he fulfilled his duties for another year, he would get a promotion and hire a new employee. The main character said that he no longer worked for him. The man said that he could do nothing else, and if he continued to do it illegally, he would be arrested. Another said that if he left them, he would be completely alone because no one except them would tolerate such a mediocre person as him, and when he got something, he would return and work for them again. One of the employees said that he was almost accepted into the union, and now no one would take him away. The boy thought that his leg would disappear, no matter how much it would cost him. The hero did not know if she heard the conversation, if there was no soundproofing. Now she heard everything they told him there, and he did not want that. The man said that he had not seen her for a long time, and that she was becoming more and more charming every day. The girl would like to find out if that imposter was fired. The blacksmith said that he still would not be useful. The most favorable conditions were created for him, but he ignored them and, it seems, learned nothing. The girl said that he got a job at her home. The man said that he does not even know how to properly forge a sword, let alone cast spells, and Alicia said that, in her opinion, the boy is very gifted, and if he does not mind, she will take him with her. The girl said that she is interested in the blacksmith. For her, the main hero is only a fictitious fiancé, but every day he falls more and more in love with her. He leaves the empire together with her, and he heads south to the kingdom. Upon arrival, her father will be waiting for them in the family yard. One day on the road, and they were already there. The hero said that even if he got tired, it would not change anything. In the smithy, he worked without breaks from morning till evening. The girl said that she had already informed her father, and he was probably already waiting for them. The boy was worried. The swindler apologized to her and said that it seemed logical to him. He apologized for entering illegally. The engagement was fake, and he crossed the line. The girl said that although he caught her by surprise, there was nothing wrong with it, so he should not worry. The main hero asked if that meant everything would look more natural if they improvised. At least they simply said that it would be so, and then the hero said he would improvise. She said that he was a one-in-a-million talent and asked her father to watch how he casts the spell. The man asked me to show him how he enchants the sword and to renew the enchantment on it. It had many magical symbols. These talismans were incomparable to those he restored at the court. The sword probably belonged to a person of high rank, such as the captain of the knights. It was carefully inlaid and decorated with inscriptions, and he had never before seen such exquisite craftsmanship. The man said that he has a week, and if he doesn't manage within that time, then there is no place for him there. That man said that the work will not take much time. Not all symbols are damaged, so the task is not difficult. Only some of them are damaged, and it is unclear whether the correct symbols need to be inserted into the formed gaps. Taking into account the signs at the beginning and the end, he begins to understand the general idea of the spell. The main character said that it is difficult to reproduce this enchantment exactly, but the effect is very similar. The man said that such a thing could not be, and he could not even imagine that the hero was so talented. The boys thanked him. The blacksmith said that he is not ready to accept him as his daughter's fiancé. At first, it seemed as if he was pretending to be very strict, but it seemed that he was mistaken. That one said that he would work hard. The other replied that he expects nothing less than the workshop in the estate, which is now at his disposal. He allowed him to freely use the necessary materials and promised to take care of the supplies himself, and also asked to issue a license and not lose it anymore. Now the main hero can act freely. As a blacksmith, he decides for himself where to apply his skills. Previously, he was only allowed to do magic. He was always limited, but now he can work with metal. The hero could not believe it. He was very grateful. The man said that some knights might need his services, and he had already informed the servants so he could ask them, because he would have to leave briefly on business. The man told him not to touch his daughter while he was away. The girl was glad she was able to convince her father. Fake said he had not fully accepted the situation yet, but would be happy to work on it. Alicia said that at least it was the first time he praised someone like that, and it seemed like a good sign. The hero owes the girl a lot. It would be good if he could repay her a little for her kindness. A maid stood before him, introduced herself, and said she would show him how it is done. There was a smithy specially arranged for Lady Alicia's fiancé. Most blacksmith workshops are arranged the same way. There was even a smithy here. He does not remember the last time he saw something like this. Usually, work is limited to magic only, and such tools are rarely used. However, it is good to have the opportunity to use them sometimes. The girl said that if he needed anything else, he should tell her, and she would take care of it. The boy replied that materials and everything else were available, thanked her, and said he needed nothing more. Liffy said that in that case, she asked for permission to show him the room. There he will live. She repeated that if he needs anything, he can turn to her. The hero thanked her and said that she showed him everything, and if he needs anything, he will inform her. It seemed to him that life was beginning to get better. Until recently, he worked in conditions that could harm his health at any time. Now he has a wonderful and kind girl beside him, his fiancée, and even if the engagement is not real, it couldn't be better. And most importantly, now he is truly free. He no longer has to worry about the work that needs to be finished in the morning. He will have time to get a good sleep, and he will be able to take at least one day off every day. But this was already unnecessary. It would not only complicate the matter, but also significantly damage his reputation. He does not need to do anything. That is exactly why he has free time. In any case, he starts his duties tomorrow, and now he decides for himself how and how much he will work until he reaches the point where he cannot take a step without being beaten, and he hopes that now every day will be just as happy. The maid said that the man was safely settled in the room assigned to him. The heroine thanked her for her diligent work. She said it turned out even better than she expected. Liffy inquired when to expect news. She doesn't understand anything. Leaving the house, she said she would ask him to become her husband. The girl said that she didn't say it like that, and it's upsetting. She said she tried to ask him to marry her. These are not real relationships, but they still talked about marriage, so it's not a problem. The wedding happened suddenly, and it's strange that she is so calm when thinking about it. After everything that happened, she feels a little embarrassed. The maid asked if the wedding date was set. Now she understood that the heroine made a proposal to her fiancé, and that was also a cover-up. Alicia said she tried and did everything she could. The girl said she thought that if he was even a little interested, he would understand everything from her behavior. The maid said that it is not just noticeable, but obvious. The heroine thought she hid things well, but now she feels even more ashamed. Liffy said that it is just a cover-up, but she already made a statement, so they need to start preparing for the wedding as soon as possible. However, the father has not yet given his blessing. In this case, the main character must first prove that he is a blacksmith, and they will wait until the master evaluates his skills. The main heroine said that the maids are right. Their family is famous for blacksmithing, so she can only marry a very talented man. As a future daughter of a noble family, she loses the freedom of choice and love. She always knew this. The maid said that she could marry the man she loved, but it was probably too early to rejoice. The man was asked what the blacksmith would do and whether he would take a new worker, because the one who was pretending had not yet returned and stood out too much to be an apprentice. Other men agreed with this, and the blacksmith began to ask about the house to which Alicia belonged. Their lineage was known only by title, but rumors circulated that sometimes they gave their daughters in marriage to the most talented blacksmiths. At first, their family was not only blacksmiths. One look at this impostor was enough to understand that he did not know the craft and no one would want to hire him. The man tried to give him a few tasks, but he could not even hold a hammer. He believed that sooner or later that boy would be fired. The hero had lost his way, but eventually he would crawl back to them. It remains only to understand how long the family will keep him before throwing him out. The man thought it would last no more than a week, and the one with nowhere to go would eventually return to them. In that case, they would give him work for a week, and for the missed week, they would entrust him with everything again. So everything was decided for 2 weeks, no need to start. They would have enough time until the main hero's return. He deserved this punishment. The man said that, first of all, he needed to explain himself before the knights. The blacksmith said that the hero himself would understand his incapacity. It was only a matter of time, and then he would chase him again like a stubborn servant. The main hero woke up before dawn again, as it had already become a habit. During his service at the court, he always got up at dawn to do all the work himself. Sometimes he finished what was left from yesterday. This was also part of the daily routine. Magic, new orders, and duties were more than those of an ordinary blacksmith. Every day from dawn to midnight, again and again. Now that he has woken up, it is not so early yet. Since he was in the smithy, quite some time has passed. He decided to get to work. The witches looked wonderful. This ore is a special metal sensitive to enchantments. It is indispensable in blacksmithing because only it can be enchanted, and enchantments significantly increase the strength of steel. And most importantly, it is easy to get from demons. To mine iron, you must constantly be in the mines. When one mine is depleted, you will have to look for the next one. You can find witches or simply kill a demon. The demon's leather gloves are quite durable and easily withstand high temperatures. Blacksmiths use the magic of fire, water, and earth. To begin with, the hero will need fire magic. There are several types of witches ore. The rarest and highest quality is disguised as Class C, followed by classes A, B, C, D, E, and F. Usually classes F and E are used. This is not the highest quality. Today he will try something simple to test himself a little. He is not going to make the most powerful weapon in the world, so this should be enough. The ore is molten, time to send it into the casting mold. After this, the temperature is raised even more. Previously, blacksmiths hardened metal in a fire pit. Today this technology is considered outdated. The material becomes soft and pliable. Now the hero will create a clay mold using earth magic and pour the metal there. Then the mold is cooled with water magic, and a steel ingot is taken out of it. It is often heated slightly, after which it is given the desired shape. You need to listen to the sound and cool and heat the steel several times. This will improve its quality, and when the quality of the metal increases, its frequency and magical potential increase. Today he has little time to work on the knife, and next time he will prepare the materials in advance. He wanted to do many things. The mold turned out almost as he planned, and now it's time to work with the clay. This will cool the blade section, increase its strength, and enhance the magical potential of the material. Before grinding, it is important to evenly distribute the magic across the surface. It is necessary to prepare some cold water near the cutting edge. The pattern appears immediately. Now you need to use wind magic to sharpen the blade. Now its surface is smooth and shiny, only the spell remains to be cast. The main character made a knife and decided to test it in action. Sharpness and mass were in perfect order. He hadn't done this for a long time and spent a whole 3 hours. It seemed the time for breakfast had come, which he had completely forgotten because earlier, due to a lot of work, he only had time for rare snacks right by the forge. He noticed the girl and asked how long she had been standing there. The girl replied that about an hour. The maid told her that he is working in the workshop today, so she came. The heroine asked me not to look at her like that because she was ashamed. He was wrong again and realized that the girl was right because he began to look at him intently. The girl said that she was still his fiancée, so if the moment was right, there was nothing wrong in the looks. The main character began to think a lot, but since her supposed fiancé decided not to think too much, because the girl was only pretending not to understand who was looking where. She came here to see how he works, but he didn't even notice her, so the girl asked him not to pay attention to it, because he was diligently working on the knife and she enjoyed watching. Alicia said that the knife turned out very beautiful. It has a sharp blade and is well enchanted. The hero said he tried very hard. If he had a little more time, he would have done even better, and if he had known she was watching, he would have put in more effort. The boy was surprised that she knew how to handle a rapier. The girl said she was well taught the basics of fencing for self-defense. The main character said he was a little distracted and she looks nice. He said it was very beautiful. These are not real engagements, but the girl so convincingly maintains the appearance of a relationship with him that it seems sincere, and he begins to think that she really cares. Although if you think about it, almost any girl can convincingly pretend, at least that's what he heard. She invited him to go with her to breakfast. Alicia asked if he had always been good at casting spells. He replied that the work always had to be done quickly and well. He had a lot of responsibility, so over time he became better, and thanks to that cursed money, he can now cast spells quickly and effectively. That is why time with her warms his heart so much. If you think about it, when he was going to the smithy, he smelled bread. The main character said that he doesn't even remember the last time he saw such treats. The girl said that if he doesn't mind, she would like to learn more about his past. He usually worked late, so during the day he often didn't have time to eat. When he managed to have a snack, he ate while working and hardly tasted the food, just swallowed it whenever he had the chance. But now when he eats with her, it is the best breakfast of his life, and he cries with happiness. It was very tasty. The girl suggested that he go to the city to show him the surroundings. Alicia said that she hardly makes acquaintances in the city, but during holidays, many people meet her father, and someone might recognize her face. People in the city are not very friendly towards her beauty, and if they recognize her, they won't be able to walk calmly. The girl said that it felt like they were on a date. The man replied that it really looked like a date, but he didn't quite understand why so much trouble was needed. That's because he is not her real fiancé, so he doesn't understand why she tries so hard to meet with him. The boy said that he believes if he succeeds as a blacksmith and earns her father's approval, that will be enough. The hero said that she didn't want to marry a stranger, so she staged an engagement with him as a cover so they wouldn't have to pretend they were on a date. The maid said that the blacksmith wanted the girl to marry a talented blacksmith and tried to make her happy in his own way. He also wanted to make sure that she would marry for love. Therefore, he did not pressure her to get married. Alicia said that this state was also very important to her, so she asked him not to worry about anything. Luffy said that she would go and wish them a good time. The main character did not notice her presence at all, although nothing else was expected from the accompanying maids. She knew what kind of relationship they had, and it became a little easier for her knowing that someone else knew about it. The girl returned to the conversation about how to influence her father's opinion. She asked if she could take the hero's hand. They would have to walk hand in hand, and this would influence her father's opinion. The girl confirmed this and said that you never know when you might attract the attention of one of his knights. The boy had already taken her hand, but now they were on a date, so he was a little more nervous than usual. He does not remember the last time he walked through the city so calmly. From now on, he no longer needs to hurry anywhere. Even if he no longer needs to work so hard on himself, he will still make every effort to improve his skills. If this continues, maybe her father will accept him. The girl asked him not to do anything rash. The man said that the fraudster left them more than a week ago and has not returned yet. He needs to endure a little. The family lives far from the capital, and in case of release, he will have to travel there for quite a long time. Koval said that it was expected, and they were the only ones whose mercy he could count on. He didn't even have a blacksmith's license, and without documents he couldn't work, so he had no choice but to go to court to ask for more. The conditions of his return are simple. The first 2 months are unpaid, and then only pennies. The captain approached them. He had an order for talismans. The owner of the highest knightly rank in the country arrived to them. The blacksmith gladly accepted the order from such a person, although he has his own blacksmith tea, whose abilities are undeniable, and he came to ask for this. The men were surprised that such a respectable person had come personally, but the captain wanted to ask something. He wanted to talk to the man who enchanted his sword. The sword was assigned to an ordinary knight, and an apprentice worked above him. The captain said that it was a blessing for their knights. When he was a simple knight, the swords they were given were barely enchanted and hardly different from ordinary ones. In fact, at that time, the blacksmith did not do magic, and it was impossible. The charlatan is not a worthy magician at all. His spells are always ridiculous, and if he had put in even a little effort, he would have handled the work more than once, but the captain said something strange. The swords he remembered from those times were like junk. The captain said that the blacksmith who enchanted the sword so well even for a simple knight deserves great praise, and he would like to entrust his sword to this charlatan. He said he would like to cast the spell himself. The captain said that he himself could not read magical inscriptions, but his blacksmith said that the work on the blade was excellent. He came there hoping to meet the master. The blacksmith said that the main character has no special gift, so he let him go for a while, maybe once he managed to successfully cast a spell, but this is rather an exception and just luck. The fake makes dozens, sometimes hundreds of spells every week. Some of them sometimes turn out well, but he has no potential at all, and regardless of effort, he will not be able to become a master. However, the captain wants to teach him the craft, and for now will leave the sword with them. The blacksmith suggested that he himself cast the spell, because he is the head of the workshop and will handle it better than the main character. The captain said that since that man is on vacation, he will return soon. The captain has time and can wait until then. He asked to convey his respect to him and will wait for the results of his work. The captain said that he relies on them, and when the work is finished, just inform one of his knights. If even the work of the main hero brings him such satisfaction, then it means that a person's work should bring satisfaction. The blacksmith decided that this was his chance to catch luck, because such an opportunity happens once in a lifetime. He decided to cast the spell himself. The man said that since the magic of fakes impressed him greatly, he would definitely exceed all expectations and then be able to become the captain's personal blacksmith. Someone might do it better than the main hero. The man said that he would not miss the chance. The benefit would go to him, and he would take on this job. This is his order. Becoming the captain's personal blacksmith, he will inscribe his name in the history of blacksmithing. As the future fifth son of an accountant family, he had no great prospects, never thought he would get such a chance, and now he manages the court forge. There stood a clock tower from where the best view of the city opened. In front of them were long stairs, and the hero was already tired. The girls said that they had almost arrived. She said that this was her favorite place, and the boy replied that it was very beautiful there. She thought that the view of the night city or the dawn would be equally beautiful. The boy replied that it was very beautiful at night and suggested staying until sunset. The girl said she would gladly see it. He was sweating as he climbed the stairs, and now it was cool in the wind, and he was thinking where to hide from the wind. The main character had to come up with what to talk about because it was awkward. They witnessed a scene where one man betrayed, two girls scolded him. The man was making excuses that it was just a mistake, but the girls did not listen to him. Koval said that the hero is a master blacksmith, so he needs him to test his abilities. The new license will allow him to trade in the city, so he will be able to make whatever he wants and sell it in the city store. However, he should not be reminded that he is the fiancé of his daughter. The boy replied that from today he would start crafting. As for materials, that man would provide him with any amount of ore of class F, and he would prepare the higher quality ore himself. He will be able to make tools for ordinary citizens, and this class will be quite sufficient. The time has come to seriously take up the craft, and at first he decided to prepare the materials. The most common type of weapon sold in the store is a longsword. First, you need to decide on the quantity. Quality must also be monitored. Even if the weapon is high quality and well balanced, it will not be bought if the price is too high. His clients are mostly adventurers. Their ranks vary, but many are level C, and most are D or E. Ideally, the traveler should have a sword that does not need to be changed when the rank changes, and it is worth making something similar to the swords he forged for the knights. A lot of time has passed since he forged long swords, so he will have to put in more effort. The molds must be strong enough not to deform under the influence of high temperatures. First, the witcher ore needs to be melted. If you pour the liquid ore into the mold and cool it with water magic, the material will cool down quite quickly. It seemed that everything was almost ready. He did well. It is necessary to raise the temperature again to harden the metal and polish it with wind magic. 2 wooden nails need to be made to secure the handle. Now connect them and drive the nails into the drilled holes. At first, he wanted to secure them near the base of the handle, but he chose another method. So he made a simple, long sword. The The hero pondered whether he was sharp enough and decided to make another one just like it. At the court, very powerful enchantments were placed on the weapons. They were sent for repairs weekly because knights could at any moment direct them against monsters that an ordinary guard could not defeat, and such strong magic was not needed by a regular adventurer. In the end, he made 3 and does not understand where such strength came from. If his magic had weakened, he would not have been able to continue, but it seems he has enough strength, which means that the processing in the court caused a constant shortage of it. He managed to make 5 spheres and decided to stop there. He wanted to wipe his face. The girl got scared, and the boy said that he won because she did not notice him at all. The main hero said it was strange that he was almost not tired, so he could do it a couple more times, and the girl was surprised by his endurance. He worked for 3 years in much harder conditions, so now he is not tired at all and thinks he needs to make another sword. The heroine said he needs to rest because he has been working tirelessly since morning. During service at the court, such an amount of work would have taken all his strength, but it seems he is getting better. The girl said that Wu is absorbed in work. Tomorrow, he wanted to go to the city to sell swords, and merchants would gather there for 2 more days. For now, the hero just wants to sell a couple of swords and find out their level, and it turned out to be quite good, considering they were forged from class Eeyore. In his native village, such work was highly valued, so eventually he ended up in the smithy at the court, despite his low origin. But in the court, he did not cope at all, and his feelings were not spared at all. In any case, now he will have to behave a little more confidently. The boy said he had already decided on the price. He said it was a fair price for the adventurer's main weapon. The hero said he would try to sell them tomorrow. The girl replied that his best time was approaching. She said she would help him. He said he would not use her influence to boost sales. She said that in that case, she would wear a mask. Alicia said everything would be fine, and besides, it could be said that he was doing it for her sake, so she wanted to help. The man agreed, but on the condition that her identity would not be revealed. The boy said he was looking forward to tomorrow. The heroine said she would do everything possible to show people that his products were the best. She had done a lot for him, and he was afraid he would sell nothing, but now that was simply impossible. This is his first business. Today he will trade for the first time. Before he got to the court, he worked in barter, giving daggers, armor, and swords in exchange for food, clothing, and shelter. The village was small, so everyone learned from each other. In court, he did not have time to listen about the market intricacies, and believes that by that time they had become even more complicated, so he cannot say exactly what price to ask for his work. If he pays the entry fee, he will receive permission to buy and sell goods that day. He should not have mentioned the girl's name in public, because if they find out he had connections with the Duke, he will break his promise to his father, so he should be careful. The girl needed to come up with a nickname, so the boy invented another nickname for her. Trading was allowed only during fairs. To sell at other times, one needed to have their own shop and the appropriate documents. The hero decided to start with a simple stall and then open a real store. He was fascinated by the prospect of real trade. The man applied for a trading license and was able to take a place for trading. For now, he will put only 2 swords up for sale. He had no customers and no one even approached him. Of course, he did not expect it to be easy, but I did not think it would be like this. There was a queue at the neighboring stall. For others, everything looked better, so next time he will have to come up with a better design. The girl began inviting customers to the sale. She said that she probably hinders more than helps. The hero said he was glad that she called the clients. In fact, he was just glad they were standing nearby. They were never addressed. She was sure that people would be interested in high-quality swords. When he worked in the village, people also did not start addressing him immediately. He knew the hardest part was the first deal. But he is confident in his work. Any adventurer of the ranks he targets would appreciate these swords. A buyer approached them and asked if they sell long swords. He wanted to move from one rank to another. The sword was comfortable and light. The guy said he had cast a special spell on it. Since he had rank F, maybe he was a bit short on money. The hero said that other swords are harder to handle. Under other circumstances, he would have started bargaining, but in this case, it is out of the question. It's not worth openly showing how much money you have. He said that the ball costs significantly more than was offered. In fact, this is not true. Even if he had made concessions, he would not have lowered the price, but today he came there to make a statement about himself. The traveler said that the price was justified because the sword was really good. The hero said that for the first time he could make an exception and give it for the offered price. Instead, if he knows adventurers who need a sword, he can tell them about it. He did not immediately think that such recommendations could attract customers. Every week on market day, he will stand behind the counter with a flag. The buyer said he would tell his friends about it. He received less than he hoped for, but was glad to have at least such income. The Duke said he would supply him with materials in any quantity, so now there is no need to worry about expenses. Finally, the first sword was sold. The main character achieved his goal for today. He knew that he would hardly be able to sell everything, so he decided to sell at least one. When the young adventurer starts showing his sword to friends, gradually there will be more customers. The girl said that this will definitely work because he made the swords, and next time it will be better than today. He received his first profit at the market and thought that this was a good start. He decided that he needed to inform the man of the result. The main character said that overall they sold one long sword. As a token of gratitude for the materials and access to the workshop, he hoped that he would accept the money. The man said that regarding Witcher, he was not going to reduce supplies, so he should not worry. However, due to his earnings, he had to lower the price to close the deal. The man had work to do. He said that he could not entrust such matters to his daughter. The hero said that sales would only increase in the future, without any doubt. The blacksmith said that if he thought so, let him convince him not with words but with results. Now he needed to study the market in more detail to understand how to increase sales. There you can find many weapon stores with a large selection, so he decided to better inspect them. At first, he wanted to see how the goods were displayed in those stores. There was demand for long swords. Of two equally effective options, people usually choose the one that looks more impressive. Perhaps it is worth decorating the handles with some carving. He decided to expand the assortment with daggers because they can be used as throwing weapons. Universal knives are also in demand. Housewives often use them in everyday life. There you can meet representatives of all levels, and this can be useful. Someday this will come in handy for him. If money is needed, he will be able to earn there as well. The main character said that adventurers do not change. The girl replied that adventurers live to the fullest. The boy went to register. He found the adventurer's registration department. Since there was no hint at all, he thought it would not take much time. To register, only two things are needed, a name and a personal file. He does not have a personal file, so he will have to fill out an application from scratch. He issued a guild member card and asked about his magical abilities. He was thanked for the registration, which was completed, and told to contact them immediately if documents are lost. The first card was given for free, but a small fee will be charged if it is lost. The main character saw how several men began to bother the girl. The boy began to defend her. He told the girl that they needed to go. They took her by the hand and told her that it was all over. The men began to shout at him. He told her to go through the crowd. One of the travelers began to pursue them and collided with one of the attendees. The man reacted aggressively. The girl said that no one had ever approached her like that before, so she was embarrassed. She said that she was a little scared. He said that it was his fault and that he should have taken her with him. She replied that it was all right because he came on time. Besides, I was her maid nearby, so I would have intervened in case of danger. There was still time before the next fair, so the hero decided to try to improve the quality of the daggers. First, it is necessary to melt the ore in the classical way. Then it must be poured into a mold created using earth magic to obtain a steel plate. The next step is to improve the quality of the steel, which contains many unwanted components. He uses magical techniques to extract them from the material. The man will raise the temperature of the plate and constantly strike it with a hammer, maintaining the required level of heat. This needs to be repeated several times for the quality of the metal to become perfect. He decided to check the magical code. The runes were still in their places. If magical techniques are applied incorrectly, they can destroy the code. He should practice directing the magical flow while working with the hammer. There was still a bit unfinished, but he managed to fix something. The final adjustment of the spells is done at the end, when all other work is already completed. At this stage, the last runes are restored. Casting spells from the very beginning is not necessary. It can be postponed until the end. It's time to give the plate the shape of a knife. You need to cool it with water magic and then polish it with wind. The edge of the blade was perfectly made. The sharpness did not fail. The knife was suitable both for combat and for processing meat, and the magical component took a lot of time. Because of this, the quality of the knife is higher than ordinary weapons. He decided to take a break, otherwise the girl might worry. The boy thought that later he could make another one. He was very fascinated that he could not stop, and he decided that if he did not stop, he would make the girl worry again. Alicia approached him, and he invited her to look at his work. She said that this time the quality is better than last time. The girl said that he always knows how to make an impression. He thanked her and said that after her words he wants to do one more. She said that only a few days remain until the start of the auction, but suggested not to rush. The girl said that she really likes watching him work, but he spends so much time in the forge that she feels lonely. She understands that it is important to him, but would be happy if she could spend even one more second with him. The boy thought that she noticed the maid, so he immediately took on the role of the bride, and it was very convincing. You never know when they are looking at you, so they should always look madly in love. The main character said that he wants to spend as much time as possible with her, even if it is only a second, so he decided to finish the matter. He suggested spending the day together. Alicia thanked him for the green. Alicia said that they are a little farther from the place where they were last time, to which the main character replied that he wanted to leave earlier, but got a little distracted. He said that it is better to stay in one place that people remember, but here it is difficult. First come, first served. He asked if the swords are displayed as last time. He added that the knives and daggers are better in quality, but their production requires fewer materials, to which she replied that she understands. He continued and said that he plans to sell them for about 20,000 crowns. At that moment, the girl loudly shouted that she greeted all passers-by and offered to show their goods. Alicia said that, as expected, it would be difficult to attract customers. He agreed with her and thought that her voice was clear, so people heard the words but did not come to the store. The main character thought that he did not understand trade at all, poor Alicia. At that moment he was called. The girl said that he should speak with pride because he had wonderful goods, so he should behave more confidently. The main character smiled at her and said that she was really right, after which he and the girl began to call customers. The imposter said that an hour had already passed, then turned to the girl and asked if she was tired, and she replied that everything was fine and she was trying. At that moment the main character heard a voice. Two men said, "Here he is," and greeted him. He told them that, as promised, he had brought someone. This is Wezer, and he is also an adventurer. Now they are on the same team. By the way, last time he did not introduce himself. His name is Ivas. The main character sincerely thanked him and then named his own name. Then Wezer began to examine the assortment. The boy with ears on his head asked if he could look at a certain sword. He was answered affirmatively, and I said that the sword he bought here was very convenient to use. He added that it was sharp, light, fit perfectly in the hand, and was nothing like the previous one, and Fakes said that he was grateful to him and very glad that he liked it. Ivis said that thanks to such a sword, last week he rose to E rank. The guild noted that the progress was very fast, and now he was like a celebrity in the guild. Fade congratulated him on this. After this, the main character asked if he had achieved this thanks to his abilities. Ivis replied that this was not the case, and then Vaser inquired how much the sword he chose cost. The main character replied by asking if the price of 40,000 crowns would suit him, and the boy blushed and asked to sell it for 30,000. Faka agreed with him and said that if they liked the quality, they should recommend them to their friends, to which he received a positive response. Ivis looked around the counter and said that there are also knives here today. He was told that they have many uses and will be useful in battle and for cutting prey. The boy said that a knife for prey is an attractive idea. After that, he asked about the price of these knives. The main character replied that they cost 30,000 each. I asked for a little discount, and he apologized for his question. Fake thought that this time he had a chance to bargain. 30,000 is the maximum, so he could give a little discount, and Aloud said that since he came today with a friend. Then he said that he was thinking about a price of 20,000. They replied that it was good, and the man addressed him and asked for permission to examine the cutting sword. The main character took the sword that was given to him, examined it, and said that the enchantment on it had weakened a little. He asked if he knew how they worked. He said he knew because blacksmiths sometimes put them on to make the sword better. Fake said that every sword has a magical code, and it had started to wear out. The boy asked the main character if it could be repaired somehow. The hero replied that he was a blacksmith, so it was not difficult. The first update of the charms would be free. When the main character finished, he said that everything was ready and now there should be no problems. Next time the service would cost 5,000 crowns, so he asked to handle the weapon carefully. Fake explained that they also provide such services, so in case of anything, one could contact them. Ivis said that he would definitely do so if he earned a lot of money, after which they said goodbye. Alicia thanked the guys for the purchase. I replied. After that he wanted to ask who that girl was, and the main character said that she was his assistant Ali. I asked him if she was accidentally his lover. the main character thought to himself that this guy speaks very strangely. Fake thought that Alicia was actually his fiancée, but it was just for show, so he did not want to talk about it so openly. I said that he understood everything. Surely, it is wonderful for him to work together with his beloved. He himself dreams of someday going on a journey with some pleasant traveler. The hero said that in that case he wished him luck, thought that something was wrong with him, put his hand on his friend's shoulder, and thanked him again for the help. Fake could not imagine that he could earn so much. The efforts invested last week are already starting to pay off. He turned to the girl and asked her if everything was all right, but fell silent because he saw a strange expression on her face. The girl said that she was his fiancée so that he could say that, and he asked what would happen if because of this her identity was revealed and the engagement turned out to be fake. Alicia said that they had succeeded and today had good sales, to which the main character agreed and said that he hoped those two would achieve a lot, having his weapon in their hands. He said that he was curious how their fate would end, and after some time noticed that it was already noon, and as a result, the guys could not sell anything else. Fake thought that they were just unlucky. It is important not to rush and to do everything gradually. At that moment the girl called him and said that they had a buyer. The blonde man in the hat said that he saw them selling swords and daggers. He rubbed his chin. The main character confirmed his words and asked if he wanted to look, and the boy took one of the knives, pulled it out of the sheath, and asked if it was really made from Class Eeyore. To this, the fraud replied that he was right. He thought that this man looked like a trader and must be very experienced because he sold his goods so quickly. The blonde said he had been in this business for a long time. The weapon was of such quality that you wouldn't immediately say it was made from Class Eeyore. He examined everything again and said that since he had swords and knives, he needed each of them. After that, they started bargaining. The main character wanted to sell for 50,000 crowns, but this man was very good at bargaining. The swindler said he seemed to give up and in that case would give everything for 35,000 crowns. He also asked if he could recommend his goods to others, to which he replied yes. In the end, he lowered the price much more than he wanted, as if tearing it from his heart, and at that moment the client said that it would be especially hard to forget his assistant and mask. The fake thanked him and asked if it was too noticeable. He replied that he actually approached the counter because of the mask and was also attracted by her beautiful voice. Alicia thanked him. The blonde waved his hand, then said they would see each other again. The main character agreed and thanked him. The fake addressed the girl, said it was all thanks to her and thanked her, and she replied that it was all because of him and that, it seemed, thanks to this client they would be able to attract many new ones. The main character said he would be glad if that happened. Today he sold 2 swords and 2 knives. The total income was 85,000 crowns. This was a significant jump compared to last week. After some time, he brought the proceeds to Mr. Gorel and said that this time everything went more successfully, but there were many other blacksmiths in the district who could also earn such an amount. The fake thought that the amount was actually not that big, but he still was not good enough. He thanked the man aloud and said that in that case he would leave, but he was stopped. The main character already asked if something was wrong, and the man replied that tomorrow a blacksmith named Robert would come here to make a proposal. Mr. Gorov said that in the future he would inherit the title to his house and become a vicar, and Fakes said that he understood everything. He thought that he was really one of the contenders. Alicia said that such company was a burden for her. It turned out he appeared because he himself could not cope with his duties. The man continued speaking and said that this Robert was very ambitious. The main character simply repeated his words. The gentleman also continued to praise this guy. Once Fakes asked that man what he meant, and he said that Robert had a high libido. The main character thought that Gorel should not repeat this with such a stone face, because he himself was already barely holding back laughter. The men said that Robert had previously confessed to one that he had intentions towards Alice, but it seemed the girl did not feel attracted to him because of his persistence. Fakes thought that he had always believed she did not like such men. Gorel said that they should not despise Robert even a little, because he could seem like a fairly sincere person. He thought that he lacked talent, so other men would appear. Mr. Gorel said that he was worried that Alicia would not be satisfied with him. In this, the main character was better. The latter thanked him but thought to himself that in his eyes he did not look like a ladies' man at all, and this was true, because he had no experience with girls at all. Gorel said that there was no need to invent unnecessary things that he had not yet accepted, but he was looking for a golden mean between satisfying his demands and his daughter's happiness. Fakes considered that the man was a wonderful father. His aristocratic status obliged him to think about a successful marriage, but he sincerely cared about his daughter's happiness. He said he would not let him down. The man asked him to try. The main character thought that his heart was not in the right place. The gentleman loved Alicia very much and deceived him, made demands on him, took care of him, and behaved very disrespectfully. In any case, to maintain his position, he needed to improve his skills. Everything was very complicated. He returned to the room, and Alicia asked about the fact that her father did not recognize him. To this, he said that it was true, and that his sales level was not satisfactory yet, and the girl said that they had tried so hard. He thought that she was dressed a little lighter than usual, and she should be more careful in such matters, as she was one of the most beautiful and noble girls in the world. The main character thought that Mr. Harrell was probably worried about that too. Then he stopped and told himself to stop thinking about all sorts of vulgarities. Fake said that now he could trade only once a week, and to appear more often at the market, he needed to open his own shop as soon as possible. But even in that case, buyers would not come immediately. So first, he needed to establish himself among the merchants and gain regular customers. Alicia agreed that he was right. Running his own store was quite expensive. The main character thought that he still had many tasks, but since it was for Alicia, he doubted whether he could cope with the role of her cover. In that case, another suitor for her hand would appear only because of his incompetence, and he addressed her aloud, saying that tomorrow some aristocrat named Robert would arrive. Alicia said that she knew and seemed unable to avoid his company, to which the main character apologized to her. The boy said that, pretending to be her fiancé, he was supposed to prevent the appearance of other candidates but failed, so the girl asked him not to worry. Alicia said that she felt uncomfortable communicating with people like him, so after the meeting, she asked him if she could see him, to which he replied that he would be in the workshop and she could come anytime. The girl thanked him for that and then asked if something had happened, because he was behaving a little differently than usual. The main heroine thought about what she had said and realized that she had been sitting like that for a long time. The boy asked her what she meant. He thought to himself that she wanted to hear. She was dressed very seductively. He wondered if she really wanted to test him. Alicia thought and said that they say, supposedly, if you dress like that, men will fall in love with you. The fakes began to ask who said that, and she replied that it was Leify, and he thought that there was some cunning genius here, and they wanted to hear his opinion on how to use it against other contenders. The main hero said honestly that he would not speak for himself, but in general, and if he were married to her, then at this moment they would already be doing something. But he did not have time to finish because the girl interrupted him and asked what they would do. He waved it off and said nothing like that, and then she asked if he had already fallen in love. Fake said that he believes it means that men in general will definitely fall in love with her, to which he replied that it was clear, and then asked if he liked her dress. Alicia began to say that nature had given her little, and then asked if that was a problem for him. The boy did not understand what question she was asking him. She asked him if he really liked it when a girl has big breasts, inquired about his opinion of her body, and in his thoughts he asked her to stop and wondered why she was doing this. A new day came, and the men said that Mr. Morgan was now the personal blacksmith of the Knight Commander, so the position of Master Smith would soon be vacant, and they discussed whether they would apply for it. At that time, Morgan thought that today the Knight Commander would appreciate the enchantment on his sword, and he hoped to get the position of personal blacksmith. At that moment, there was a knock at the door. It was the night watchman, who said he hadn't seen them for a long time. Morgan thought that he was more likely offering him a promotion, but the guy asked if Fake was here. The man was shocked and thought that they were interested in the main character again, and aloud said that they were still waiting for his return. The knight said that he still wanted to talk about the sword he had entrusted to him. Morgan interrupted him and said that Fake was currently on vacation, so he had taken on some of his duties. The knight said that now everything was clear to him, and Morgan asked what he would say about the sword. At that moment, the guy became very angry and surprised the people around. Then he swung the sword, which immediately fell apart. After that, the knight jumped at Morgan, grabbed him by the collar, pressed the sword to him, and said that this was very bad. Morgan immediately asked what he meant, and the knight replied that he had asked his personal blacksmith to examine his amulets, and he said he had never seen such mediocre work. The knight said that if the sword was used at full strength, it would crumble to pieces. He no longer wanted to deal with such an incompetent person and ordered that the work be done by a front man. Then the man again asked where the main character had been, and also where he had been on vacation. Morgan thought he was scared. For the first time in his life, someone shouted at him like that. Usually, just mentioning the name of his father, one of the most influential people in the country, made people fall at his feet. Other smithy workers said that the forger no longer worked there, to which the knight asked the reason, and then added that he was so talented that even his master would like to meet him. At that time, Morgan thought that the forger was truly so talented that it was impossible. It could not be that the man's own works were worse. The man said that Faye could leave his position of his own free will. The knight asked if he really left. They answered affirmatively, apologized for the quality of the sword, and said that the man had already left. Knight closed its eyes and asked if they knew where he was going. They answered no. That man said he understood everything now, and since then they have not followed a single order. Then the boy shouted at them and told them to come to their senses, cast spells correctly, and arm the knights, otherwise they would have nothing to fight with. The knights would soon truly be left with nothing to fight with. They hoped to put all the work on the Fae, and did not understand why he had not yet returned. At that moment the boy asked why they were standing there, and if he had not expressed himself clearly, to which they replied that everything was perfectly clear, and they would start working immediately. All the smithy workers looked at him with fear in their eyes. The knights said they understood what he had seen, and ordered them to contact him as soon as they found out where Fake had been. After this, he left the smithy. Others began to ask what to do with such a quantity of swords, and not only with them, because more weapons arrived daily, to which Morgan said they should quickly get to work. The man thought that all this was happening because of a bad person. He loudly said that he needed to find a way to finish the work on time. At that moment, the knight who came out of the forge felt that something was wrong with those court blacksmiths. At that moment, another man called him and said there was something that required his attention. He asked what was the matter, and he was told it was a batch of swords they had recently received. New weapons had not been brought for a long time, had to make do with what was available, but enchantments gradually deteriorate. The new shipment partially solves the problem, but not completely, and he replied that the quality of the enchantments is very low. The knight said that he had to check the magic code. The blacksmith asked if he would be all right because last time after the check he felt very bad, and the knight replied that this time he would be more careful. It occurred to him that his abilities were not enough to see the magic code of the spell cast by the forger. Attempting to read a higher-level spell caused severe physical discomfort. Trying to read Fake's magic spells several times turned him inside out, which means that its level is significantly higher than his. This time the spell was cast by other people, but they were still court blacksmiths, so except for Morgan, they are the best blacksmiths in the country. When the knight began to check, he was outraged and said that it all looked like childish scribbles and that spells of such quality destroy the sword from the inside. The blonde woman addressed the blacksmith and asked if he had given these swords to anyone else. He replied no and explained that he himself considered them terrible, and the knight said that was the right decision because it is impossible to work with such swords. The boy looked at the sword in his hands and thought that this nonsense would only ruin the sword, and then he would have to rewrite the entire magic code from scratch. No one expected that these people performed their work so poorly. They were supposed to be the best in the country. The blonde man addressed the blacksmith and asked if they had any quality swords left, and the blacksmith replied that there were a few, but not enough to fulfill the plan to get rid of the monsters. In that case, priority would be given to the recruits who could not yet afford their own sword, and they would be asked not to use it too much. He had to talk to another blacksmith who was working on his sword. The knight introduced himself as Mr. Figure and said that he once forged his sword. He was a person of a complex character. He doubted that he would agree, but for now he could only rely on him in this matter, so he would try. The Blown said that it was all because of those stupid Kuznetsovs. Later, he would start an internal investigation, and he needed to find out where Fake was now. The royal court is a large closed environment. Behind the scenes, dubious deals often take place, and suspicious decisions are made. Newcomers are treated quite strictly during training. He does not doubt that more is happening in the shadow than he imagines. The supply of premium-class swords in recent years raises suspicion, and he thinks they could all be fakes. If this is true, then even for him, uneducated, his rare talent is obvious. It is unknown how many more Kuznetsovs in the country could provide such an incredible combination of quality and quantity. The knight said that the departure of fakes would turn the knight back by 50 years, and at that moment, his blacksmith asked again. The blonde thought that those court blacksmiths and this Morgan were hiding something. He knew it for sure. At that moment, Fakes was standing by the window and looking at the newcomer, deciding that it was Robert, that he was a rather dignified man, and envied him because he could do nothing. He hesitated whether to greet him, probably not. He was also a rival and could accidentally provoke him. The best thing would be to spend the day in the workshop. After some time, the main character found himself face to face with Robert. Alicia stood behind him. The girl apologized and said that Robert insisted on meeting him at least once. The last one said that he understood that he was Alice's fiancé. The main character extended his hand, said he was glad to meet, and introduced himself. Robert replied that he was also glad to meet and introduced himself. Robert took Fake's hand in his own and began to examine it carefully, and the main character immediately asked what had happened. To which the boy replied that everything was fine, he was just thinking about how nice his hands were. They were enchantingly strong, the skin so dense and elastic. Then Robert looked at Alicia and asked if she always hides behind someone's back. He also said that they had not seen each other for a very long time. That time she was standing behind the servant's shoulder when they were discussing books in the garden. He was a little offended, and the girl apologized to him. Robert looked at her carefully, then something occurred to him, and he said that the girl had grown up a lot, and she asked again if it was true. The boy turned to the main character and asked if he liked it here. He thought the question was sudden and immediately looked at the girl. Fake thought it was very awkward. It seemed that Alicia was also not used to such conversations, but he could not allow anyone to guess about their fake relationship. Besides, he had no right to lose to this person, regardless of whether she loved him or not. The main character said aloud that he loved Alicia and was simply crazy about her. The girl looked at him in shock. At that moment, Robert called her by name and asked for permission to talk to her alone. When they were left alone, Robert noticed the sword and asked to see it. Fake agreed and thought to himself that he appreciated his work. Robert was a talented blacksmith. The boy lifted the sword, touched the blade, asked if it was magical, and added that it was a very good sword. The main character thanked him. He said that it was obtained during the magical war, to which Robert replied that he understood everything. The boy was quite skilled, and the final spells were cast very skillfully. Robert put the sword back and said that sometimes he could talk all sorts of nonsense, so he should not be taken seriously. Fake immediately asked what he meant. Robert approached the table, took a knife, and said that he was talking nonsense. He was not a skilled blacksmith and was little interested in it. This surprised the main character very much. The boy continued and said that compared to other blacksmiths, he considered himself somewhere in the middle, so he was here as an aristocrat. Robert said that Lady Alicia is very attractive. Many men would like to see her as their fiancée. He said that she is beautiful, like a delicate flower, but unfortunately she was growing up. The main character did not understand his words and asked if he knew that she was only 18 years old, but Robert did not listen to him and said that she used to be like that. He continued and said that she was so tiny, so small, that it seemed she would break in half if hugged, and Fake did not understand what he was talking about, so the boy explained that she had grown up. Lady Alicia is indeed a beautiful young lady, but that is not enough for him. He likes younger girls. Robert cried and said that if Alicia were 20 cm shorter and had smaller breasts, it would be different. Her current appearance does not move him at all. The main character listened to her speech and did not understand what she was talking about at all, but her figure fully matched her elegance. Then he restrained his thoughts and aloud asked Robert what he meant, to which Robert replied that he simply no longer feels that passion for her. The main character said he understood, then asked if that meant he was no longer interested, to which Robert honestly answered that it was true. The man said that, first of all, he has no uncontrollable ambitions or aristocratic title. He hopes to achieve more as an independent warrior and has higher goals. He thinks that the Barnasto family wants a son-in-law who is a blacksmith, but he prefers hunting monsters to blacksmithing, so due to family circumstances, he has to pretend to be a blacksmith because his parents are very persistent. He ran up to the main character, grabbed him, and said that he wished him luck and expected him to keep their conversation secret from the Barnasto family. Fake looked at him and said that he understood. Robert replied that it was wonderful, and then added that he liked one sword. The man asked if it could be bought. The main character replied that it could, and at that moment Robert inquired about the price. He thought that this sword was better than the one he recently sold to Iva's, and there were more decorations on the hilt. Aloud he doubted whether 10,000 crowns would be enough, and Robert answered that it was. The main character thought that he asked quite a high price, but that man turned out to be an aristocrat at that moment. He had a box with equipment in his hands. Each such box holds a certain number of items. It costs as much as the annual income of an ordinary person. Robert at that moment handed him the money and asked to check. The fraudster replied that everything was fine. The boy asked him to remember the request. Maybe in the future he would bring him weapons. To this, the main character replied that in that case he would wait for him. Robert said that then they would drop formalities because he wanted to be friends with him. At first the hero wanted to argue with him, but when he saw Robert's face, he asked him to take care of him from now on. After some time they returned to Alice. She saw the fake sword with him and asked if it was what he wanted, to which Robert replied yes and said that he also needed to talk to him. The boy said that Fake seemed to be a very talented blacksmith, so he decided to buy the sword as a sample. He hopes not to lose contact with him in the future, to which he responded in kind. After that, Robert waved to them, said he was leaving, wished all the best, and informed that he would visit Lady Alicia again. The main character sighed and said that it seemed they did well. The girl praised him and thanked him for today, and he replied that she also worked well. He asked if there would be others besides Robert. She answered affirmatively, and he added that there would be many more such cases. He thought that Robert turned out to be not bad, but it is unknown what will happen in the future. Alicia asked if she could also inspect the goods. The main character said they would start with the highest quality items, 3 knives and 3 swords of class D+. Robert recently bought the same sword from him. Next come swords and knives of class D, 3 of each. Ivis took them from him. The knife is class E. There are also goods of class F. Now he has a good assortment in all classes. He plans to offer F-class weapons to adventurers with a limited budget. It seems there are many new faces in the market today. This time he has prepared several budget options. The swindler said that this time there are many goods. Today he also plans to bargain with the buyers. The most important thing now is to convince people to buy their goods. After this, he decided that today he must give all his strength. The girl encouraged him and said that the trade had begun. They were watching what was happening around. The main character said that there are more people today, to which the girl replied that it is good and therefore they need to speak louder. At that moment, one of the boys noticed their bench. Fake thought that in the morning they sold a class F knife and 1 sword. This man offered 12,000 crowns for them, and he agreed to this amount. Although he, of course, wanted to get 15,000 for them, that man bargained much better than him. In fact, he sincerely wants to support and supply adventurers. If he manages to establish contact with them, it might turn out the same as with IVUS. He will consider it an investment in the future. At that moment he heard a voice that spoke of years and winters. They immediately raised their heads and saw that it was the same merchant again. Fake said he was glad to see him again. The merchant asked how they were doing. The main character realized that this was a traveling merchant. He hoped to meet him again. It was clear that he was very happy. The merchant said that his sword turned out to be strangely good and very useful on the journey. It was much lighter and stronger than expected, and it was easy to use. The main character rejoiced at these words and thanked him. The boy said that, moreover, it had very high magical transmission. It was hard to believe that the sword was made from class E ore. Fake was surprised and said that if he liked the sword so much, then he was very glad. The merchant replied that magic even hardens the blade during use. Enchanted weapons are a real wonder. The blonde said that today he wanted to buy more. The main character was surprised, and the blonde added and asked if he could take a little of everything. The merchant also said that one look was enough to understand that this product was of higher quality than last time. The boy said that he liked these swords and knives, then asked for permission to inspect them. Fake thought that he was pointing to D+. This boy clearly had a sharp eye. When the merchant inspected all the goods, he chose a few things for himself, then thanked and asked how much he had to pay, to which the fake seller replied that it was a total of 12 knives and swords. The merchant looked over all these things once again and said that he would take them all. The main character was surprised by his words. He thanked him aloud for the choice, then turned to Alice and asked her to pack everything, to which she agreed. Fake said that regarding the price he agreed, this time they would settle for 500,000 crowns, and both were satisfied. He knew that bargaining with him would be harder than with Robert. Traveling merchants were very skilled at bargaining, but he managed to get more than he expected, and that was good. The merchant thanked him for the help, after which he said that he had not introduced himself yet. His name was Rick. He addressed the main character, said that there is a fake engraving on the handle, asked for permission to use it, and the main character gave a false answer that it was okay. The merchant said he would be very grateful to him and thanked him again, after which the main character bowed his head and said that he was also grateful to him. After that, the boy smiled and said that in that case he was leaving, and they would see each other again. At that moment, Alicia said that it was done by a forger. He bought a lot. Their dream came true. She's very happy because she thinks he has incredible weapons. The main character thanked her and said that her words gave him confidence, then smiled and added that he would continue in the same spirit. Unfortunately, all the goods are sold out, probably due to the variety of categories in the assortment. He should take this into account in the future. After some time, they were returning home. Alicia said that today they sold so much, to which Fake replied that it was all thanks to that merchant Rick. Also, thanks to the girl, he thanked her for everything. Alicia said that they sold so much because he had quality goods. At that moment, he was called by name and told that they had not seen each other for a long time. It turned out that it was Ivis and Vezir. They asked how things were. Fake greeted them. They asked if they were going home. Fake replied yes, then Vezir called them by name. The boy said that his sword is simply wonderful, very easy to use, and it exceeded all expectations. The main character said he was glad to hear that. That man thanked him again for such a good sword. At that moment, I said that he had a request. After this, he asked if the main character takes custom orders. The main character was shocked. Fake answered positively and asked if they were interested in something specific. I said that the sword is very convenient, but it needs to be a bit shorter, and asked if that was possible. The main character said he understood and thought that he probably needed a dagger, not a sword. Weather also said he had a request and wanted something longer and wider. Fake said that was possible, but he needed more information to understand exactly what they did not want, and custom orders would be more expensive. The price could be agreed upon later, and all details discussed. To this, their friends in turn said they couldn't wait but agreed with his proposal. He thought that finally he would be able to make custom orders and wanted to start as soon as possible. Ivis asked him when it was convenient for him, to which Faker replied anytime. Then he suggested meeting tomorrow in front of the Adventurers Guild and asked if they wanted to go on an adventure. At first, they asked him about the proposal and then agreed. Fake explained to them that he needed to see both of them in action to understand what kind of sword they needed. And he would have to go to the weapon shop and find something similar to use as a sample, but they agreed with what the guys said, that it was excellent. After this, Wacer and I waved at them with smiles and said we were looking forward to the meeting tomorrow. Alicia asked if they would go on the adventure together tomorrow. He asked if she wanted to join. She agreed and said she heard he knew how to fight. Fake explained that before coming to the court, he himself obtained all the materials. She replied that she also wanted to see them. He said it was too dangerous, but she said she practiced fencing and would not be a burden to them. The main character said he understood everything. If anything happened, he would protect her. She must be by his side tomorrow. Alicia blushed and asked him to repeat. He asked her why she needed that. The girl said that she was very pleased to hear it, asked him to repeat it, to which Fake replied that now he felt embarrassed, and to himself he wondered why she suddenly acted that way. The main character blushed and said that she should be with him, he would protect her. The girl blushed even more. Fake asked if it was uncomfortable, and then asked if she would say those words if he asked her, to which she asked what exactly he wanted to hear. The main character thought that he would like to hear that she felt something similar for him, but he restrained himself because it was too direct. Aloud he said that he wanted to hear from her that she wanted to be near him, and Alicia asked if he really wanted that. He wondered if he had put her in an awkward position too soon, but aloud said that it did not matter. In fact, he blurted it out without thinking. Alicia immediately got upset by his words. The main character continued talking about what he asked in response to those words, but the girl was no longer listening, turned around and left, and he was surprised. The main character asked why she was leaving and asked her to wait for him. The girl said that if he wanted, she would say it. Fake thought that at least she did not make him repeat that phrase again, and that was important. The protagonist was again in Mr. Gurl's office and reported that today's revenue was 512,000 crowns, after which the man immediately asked about it again. Fake said that today he showed an assortment of weapons of different classes. Merchant Rick liked his goods, so he bought everything wholesale. The man said that he understood everything and thought that if the merchant liked it, he would buy even more in the future. Fake said that all this was thanks to the excellent working conditions created by Mr. Gurl. Mr. Gurl replied that he was still on probation and had not given any approvals yet. The man also said that he heard something from Alicia and then asked if it was true that they would set off on an adventure tomorrow. The main character responded approvingly and explained that he would join the adventurers who had made individual orders to see them in action. He plans to make a weapon that suits them perfectly. Every traveler needs a sword that matches their fighting style. He wants to see it personally to fulfill the order as accurately as possible. Gurl said that he is very meticulous in his approach to work, to which the main character explains that he makes every effort to ensure high quality of work. The man said that if the surveillance is conducted from a distance, he will provide them with escort, because if anything happens to Alicia, he will have problems, and he also inquired about his combat experience. Fake explained that before coming to the court he stocked up on materials, so he handles low-level monsters well. Gurl said he was glad to hear that. The man also said that he might try his strength someday, to which the main character agreed, and added that he would demonstrate it if needed. After some time, the boy found himself in his chambers. He thought he would not have to fight for long, but remembered the feeling that everything would be fine. A new day began. The main character and Alicia met with their friends, who were very excited and said it was time to move on. Ives addressed them, and asked to abandon formalities from now on and communicate more neutrally, to which the protagonist replied that he had nothing against it. He also addressed Iwasu and asked him to speak to him more simply, but he replied that he could not, it was too difficult for him. The main character asked about their plans for today, and the guys explained that they had accepted a quest from the guild to hunt monsters in this forest. Fake immediately clarified that they were indeed hunting monsters right here. So I had to become more serious and say that there must be wolves, goblins, and a wolf leader here. Wezer said that if you go deeper, you might encounter orcs. There will be no stronger monsters in this area. To this, Fake replied that they do not intend to go deeper into the forest. The boys said that their goal today is to show their fighting style, so they ask you to watch carefully. The main character said he understood everything. The boys were walking ahead, and Fake and Alicia were behind. Fake placed his hand on his chest and closed his eyes. Alicia asked him if he felt bad and if anything hurt. The main character said that everything is fine, he is just casting a spell on himself. The girl, shocked, asked again if he is really casting a spell on himself. Fake explained that it is similar to strengthening magic, where you can make the body stronger and monitor its condition, just like tempering a blade, carefully and without harm to health. He thought that this way he could protect the girl, spoke to her aloud, and asked her to immediately tell him if something was wrong, and she agreed. Ivis turned around and said that he sees they are not wasting time, and addressed Mr. Fake. The last one asked him not to tease, to which the boy replied that he did not think so, they just looked so cute, after which he turned to the girl and asked if she knew how to fight, to which she replied only for self-defense. They told me that in such a case he thought he might have to protect the main heroine. He replied that it was possible. Then the guy said for her to press her shoulder against his. I began to talk about how after these actions their touches would grow into passionate embraces, but he did not manage to finish the speech because Weiser interrupted him. He told them not to pay attention to this person. I was asked why the werewolves are so strong. Fake told him not to worry, everything is fine. After a few minutes, Alicia pulled him by the clothes and asked if she could stay close to him, to which the main character agreed and said that it was quite dangerous here. Fake pressed her to himself, and he felt as if his heart was about to burst out of his chest. He would definitely protect the girl. One must be especially vigilant in the forest. At that moment, Weather sensed something, so he stopped everyone and said that wolves were approaching, and the main character with the girl should stand behind them. After that, he addressed his friend Ivis and said that they needed to act, so they immediately rushed at the wolves that appeared. Fake thought that it happened too quickly. Ivis at that moment dodged the wolf's attack. The wolf was clearly enraged, then it lunged at the boy again. At that moment, Ivis sharply stepped aside, swung his sword, and saying that he would go first, immediately killed the wolf. The rest of the beasts stood in shock and looked ahead. At that moment, behind them appeared Weather, swung his sword, and said that the second one was also finished. Then shouting for the wolf to get what it wanted, he swung his sword and cut it in half. He also dealt with the second opponent. After a few minutes, Weather said that everything was over, then addressed Ivis, who said that everything was done well, and Fake was shocked by what was happening. The main character thought that while I was distracted, the enemy Vezir finished him off, and that was their tactic. Ivis is very fast, moves skillfully, and dodges enemies, and the werewolves are much stronger than ordinary people, which gives him an advantage. I appreciated the opinion of the main character, and he replied that it was excellent. He was thinking about what weapon he could make for them. He said that they were both strong, their duo combined speed and strength. He did not believe that there was a monster in this forest that could defeat them. Then he asked to try it himself as well. The guys were surprised and immediately asked him again what he had said. After some time, they approached the place and hid in the bushes. In the clearing before them were monsters. The main character inquired if they were really two goblins, to which he was told that the monsters had not noticed them yet. He said that was good and picked up a small stone. Then Fake swung his hand and threw the stone directly at the goblins. The throw was so strong that one of them was instantly knocked off his feet. The second ran up to him with a stick in his hand. The main character drew his sword and struck him. In a few minutes he understood everything. I said that he was simply incredibly strong, to which he replied that I was exaggerating. He used to gather materials himself, so such fights were not new to him. Lisa blushed. She turned to the main character and said that he was simply incredible. The boy blushed in response and thanked her. I already said that it seemed Lady Ali also liked to watch the Fake. She changed the subject and asked them to show a few more of their tactics, and then they would return to the workshop. He studied the fighting style for some time. Considering Ivis's speed and agility, it was better to make a light short sword for him. Vezir would suit a long sword because he was better at handling heavy weapons. Before Fake could start work, he needed to learn more about their preferences. They returned to the workshop, and he immediately asked E. West what he thought about the short sword. The man replied that it was too long and heavy. Then the main character asked about daggers. The man said that the blade itself was too short. But that man added that the weight was just perfect for him. Fake said that he seemed to understand that a shorter and lighter sword was needed. Pretend that you approach them and thank them for their time. Now he roughly imagines what their ideal weapon should look like. I in turn thanked him and asked how much this weapon would ultimately cost. He thought that due to the custom order and materials, he did not want to undervalue the price of his work too much, but these were his first clients. The main character said that if the final weapon options suit them, he suggests doing so. Ivis, the weapon will cost 40,000 crowns, and Vaser's weapon will cost 60,000. Vaser replied that this was even cheaper than he expected. Fake apologized and said that this price takes into account that they will give their old tools for melting down, in which case an additional 40,000 crowns will be added. The guy said that he understood everything and that he did not mind giving up his old weapon for such a good discount. Fake said that they agreed and their weapons would be ready by the start of the next auction. He thanked once again for today, and the guys in response thanked him and said they were looking forward to his creation. Fake said that everything was great and he would start tomorrow. They wished him luck and he thanked them. A new day began. The main character was in the forge and decided to start with the weapon for Ivis. His sword should be between a dagger and a short sword, combining the weight of a dagger with the length of a sword. You will have to reduce the amount of magic during forging, but then the weapon will not last long. Ivis and Vezir are partners. They will have to survive many more battles together, so the weapon must be very reliable, and for this he will have to work diligently. At first he melted the ore, then forged an iron plate. When the mold was ready, he began to recite the spell. Don't overdo it with them. They are rather needed to correct the magical code. It can be broken by a hammer blow, but thanks to the spells it will be easy to restore. If this procedure is repeated several times, the magical code will be more firmly embedded in the sword, like human muscles that become stronger under maximum load. When the mold was set, it was time to heat it. He immediately set fire to what he had made. After a few minutes, the burning stopped. The hero looked at his work and said that it was just right, after which he began to sharpen. Usually he sharpens products by his own feeling, but this time he had to be especially careful. After finishing the sharpening, he took to forming the handles. After that, Fake went outside and decided to try the sword to understand what it was like, and it turned out to be sharper than expected, and it did not yet have additional spells that would make it even sharper. He hopes that this sword will help Ivis break through to the top and keep a cheerful mood. After some time, the sword was finally ready. Vasia's sword turned out to be one-sided, somewhat similar to Falsio, and Fake decided that one sharp side would be enough for his blade. Medium length, shorter than a sword, weighs a little more than a dagger, but lighter than a sword, just what I wanted. Fake said that he was exhausted, only the blades remained to be made, and one could say that half the work was already done. He did not expect that one order would be so exhausting. This is the first sword by order. He hopes that Ivis will be satisfied. At that moment, there was a knock on the door, and Alice asked for permission to enter. He allowed it. The girl said she saw how he was working tensely, and inquired if he had already finished part of the order. To this, Fake replied that he decided to start with the weapons because I was there, and then asked if she wanted to see. She said that this sword combines the power and elegance of magic. Alicia said that it looked like a real work of art. Twitchy thanked her and said that he did not try in vain, because sword itself exhausted him. She said she was worried and therefore came to visit him. The protagonist asked how long it took. He thought he started working in the morning, and it seemed to him that forging the sword lasted about 5 hours. At that moment, Alicia asked him if he wanted something to eat. He said no, and added that he really wanted to sleep. She sat on the floor and patted her knees. The girl said that since he was tired, he should lie on her knees. He was embarrassed and tried to object, but she insisted that he should lie down. The main character listened to her and laid his head on her knees. They seemed so soft, but resting here did not work because he was worried and could not relax. Alicia asked about his plans for the day, and Fake said he was going to make a few things for sale and finish today, and tomorrow start work on Weiser's order, so she suggested lying down a little more. The main character thought he was doing something that could protect the people who were important to him. He rested on the knees of his beloved and was the happiest person in the world. A new day came. Fake thought that unlike the Ibusa sword, the Wezir sword would require a lot of magical ore. Therefore, the sword would be more expensive. First, using earth magic, he made a mold for a wide plate. He put molten magical ore into it and let it solidify. After that, the plate needs to be reheated again, as in the case of the Iwasa sword. the same actions need to be repeated. He uses a hammer to give it the desired shape, then raises the temperature again and repeats this several times. He did not know whether to enchant the sword and thought about what to do with its final form. Wezer, unlike Ives, knows how to use any blade. The main character thought that because of this he wants to create a double-edged blade for him. In that case, a long and wide sword would be suitable, as we, sir, wanted. His sword is not just meant to wound, but to overcome enemies. In their duo, Ives distracts attention to himself, and Wezer immediately finishes off, so the sword must be heavy and sharp enough to kill with one strike. He decided to introduce magical information, then forge the sword, and by repeating the steel hardening process, he could bring it to perfection. Arya enchanted the iron to make it even better, but forging such a large thing is not easy, and if he had not cast spells on himself, it would have been very difficult. Finally, Fake achieved the desired shape and weight of Wezer's sword. Then he realized it was already noon, and the work on this sword would take much more time than he thought, so he should rest. After the arrest, he decided not to stop and worked until evening until he finally finished. He looked very tired. The sword turned out to be very heavy. It was difficult to harden. Since the sword is long, sharpening with wind magic requires more power than usual. The main character thought the work was much more difficult than he expected. Still, he should have named a higher price. After that, it was time for the last run before the final enchantment. He went outside again to test the sword in action. It is a false belief that this sword can kill a monster with one strike, as if the double-edged blade and great weight allow cutting through anything. The time for the final touch had come, so he needed to find exactly those charms that would reveal Wezer's combat potential. It was all over. He spent the whole day in the workshop until the sword was ready. He immediately fell to the floor and said that it had finally happened. After that, the main character wondered if the boys would like the new weapon. He couldn't wait to give them the swords. At that time, Alicia tried to lift Wezer's sword. The girl said that the sword was heavy and she couldn't lift it. He replied that he made the sword taking into account Wezer's physique and wishes and asked her to extend her hand to him. Fake said that he temporarily enhanced her physical abilities. Now she could lift this sword, and she offered to try. She really did it. Alicia said that it was very heavy. In the world, only 2 people can create something similar using magicka. Fake asked if that was true. He didn't think so. To this, he replied that she had met many blacksmiths, but only a few could make something like that. Alicia smiled and told him that he was an incredible blacksmith, and the main character thanked her for that, but said that he still had room to grow. The girl said that he had worked in the workshop for 2 days without a break, then asked if they would go to dinner, to which he agreed and explained that he was very hungry, and she said that he could eat as much as he wanted. At that time, the knight returned to the forge to Morgan and asked what their forge generally did, to which the man again asked what exactly he meant. The man said that he called him because of the sword entrusted to him. He asked why the work was done so poorly. Morgan was immediately surprised and thought that such a wonderful enchanted weapon really had no problems. The man said that every night his guild received an enchanted blade. The forge operates almost around the clock, and it requires incredible effort. Morgan explained that their forge is already working without breaks. This business requires large investments, strength, energy, and endurance, and he asked whether it would be worth asking the knights to treat the swords more carefully. The knight asked if their provisions had offered to supply new weapons every month. This deal was made about 3 years ago. Morgan thought it was right, and that was that. When Faker arrived at their palace and had settled in, he transferred all responsibilities solely to him. They discussed everything, and to make him suffer more, they changed the supply system and brought it to its current state. But the boy coped with these difficulties, which greatly angered the man. Therefore, he arranged with the knights for regular weapon supplies. The knight said that previously supplies were made once every 6 or once every 3 months. The blonde said that if they continue making swords of such disgusting quality, they will refuse the services of their forge. Morgan was shocked by his words. He did not like the word disgusting. The man asked what shit meant, and the knight explained that the sword he was working on was not comparable at all to the one inlaid by the forger. That night he thought that all those high-quality swords they had supplied earlier were actually fakes. The blonde said that none of their swords can be used. The charms on each of them need to be fixed. Morgan said that they work even on holidays and have no time. Maybe they want a raise. The knight said that if they continue to supply weapons of such quality, they will have to consider lowering wages, and brought swords that still have fake talismans on them, so they can be used as samples. Morgan asked if this was really Fake's charm, because he couldn't even look at such low-quality work. Nish was immediately surprised by his words. The blonde said that even he, a man who could not see the magic code, could see it, and he thought about how this man dared to speak to him like that. Morgan spread his arms to the sides, sighed deeply, and turned to the captain of the knights, saying that it seems he does not know. The man said that unlike the other, he could not see the magical code. This means that he cannot distinguish a roughly made code from a good one. Morgan began to say, in other words, that fake spell was so bad that it could not even be fixed. The man continued to say that there is no spell worse than these, no blacksmith could even look at them, and if he tried, he would immediately feel unbearable disgust, so none of them could continue working. Morgan recalled a terrible event that happened about a year after Fake became a blacksmith, and told him that he has no talent, and he apologized and explained that he was not used to it yet. The man shouted at him and said that from now on he would sit in the workshop every day and enchant all the swords himself, and Morgan thought that since then he had not looked at him, and did not want to look. At that moment, Knight asked if it was really one of them. He confirmed his words, and then the blonde said that he supposedly meant that every blacksmith got into his workshop only through connections and was almost good for nothing. Morgan thought that it was true that everyone, including himself, became court blacksmiths only through connections, but even so they have abilities and cannot be equated with ordinary people. The knight said that in that case it was enough, and asked him to at least enchant the swords so that they could be used. The blonde said that he was finished with him, the man could go. Morgan, when he left the office, considered himself a bad person because he made only one-sided demands. He had never met such a reckless person, although he worked tirelessly. He thought that this country was doomed. If he became this man's personal blacksmith, his life would be over. Fortunately, this did not happen. Today he was tired. He would leave today's work to others and rest a little. After some time, Nish gathered all the blacksmiths in one room. He told them that they were all talentless. Morgan exchanged glances with the other blacksmiths, then asked what that man meant, because in fact they were court blacksmiths. You thought that the blonde woman had poor eyesight and dared to say so. Nish said that if they could show results, he would not report it to another department. At first he wanted Fake to check his sword, but he could not even imagine that they would return this parody of a weapon to him. They had enough audacity, and he called them bad people. He filled them with power, and some of the Kuznetsovs fell to the floor. Nish said that as soon as he began to investigate, more and more of their offenses became known. It seems that besides forgeries, many Kuznets left this place, and none of them worked there for more than a year. The fact that specialists flee here so quickly is entirely Morgan's fault. The other side said that they really have staff turnover, but this is because modern youth lack courage. The knight said that this is all untrue. According to him, the workshop chief mocked the new subordinates, after which he flew up to Morgan and grabbed him by the collar. The blonde said that he was talking about him. The man explained that he did not mock anyone, it was training, he was just training them. Then Nish began to say that Fake did not even have a day off and had to spend the night in the forge. He asked where the training took place and added that that man was more suitable as an executioner than as a blacksmith. Morgan began to deny everything and say that it was not true, and this angered the knight even more. He ordered him to be silent and then waved his hand. The blonde hit him and he fell to the ground. Morgan then asked if he considered violence acceptable. Knight reminded how many valuable blacksmiths they lost because of him, and compared to that, his pain meant nothing. The blonde said that the man is obliged to return the forgery, and not only him. He will call back all the Kuznetsovs they lost. Each of the current blacksmiths will crawl on their knees and apologize to those who left because of them. Knight even suggested several apology options, after which he asked if everyone understood. From the whole conversation, Morgan understood that he was fired. He immediately asked if it was true, to which Knight shouted that it was obvious. Morgan said he would not kneel before them, to which the blonde replied that if they cannot return them, everyone will be fired. He already told that man's family about the situation in detail. Knight added that it seemed they decided to turn away from him. Morgan could not believe it. He thought he was no longer a court blacksmith, and if he is stripped of titles, life makes no sense. The blonde said that if they manage to return all the blacksmiths, he will allow them to join the Knight Corps, but they will have to undergo strict training. The knight said that for now they will postpone this issue, and now he needs to go pick up Kuznetsov. The man wondered why this was happening to him. At that time in the market, the main character handed swords to the guys, said everyone was ready, and then asked their opinion. I said that the length is perfect, the sword is very light and compact, but it still feels great power in it. The protagonist said that it was adapted to his fighting style, so it is not very suitable for frontal attacks. The fake still added that he wants to make the blade as strong as possible, but the blade may not withstand direct confrontation with such a strong opponent as Wiser, so he needs to be more careful. Iva said that he understood everything. after which he thanked him and said that if he fights as always, there will be no problems. Vezir also raised the sword. The main character was amazed that Vezir holds such a weight with only one hand. He asked Vezir aloud how he felt. The beastman said that the weight was exactly what he needed. Fake said he was glad to hear that and then asked about the length, to which he replied that everything was fine with that too. Vezir said that it was so perfect that he could not believe it. Everything was exactly as he wanted. For the first time, he saw a sword that fit so well in his hands. Fake said that he bets on one decisive strike. Their fighting styles complement each other. Ivis lures the enemy, and Vezir finishes him off. Vezir agreed and said he would appreciate this sword. The main character said not to worry. He could use it as much as he wanted, and if it broke, he would just bring it back to him. This is the main joy of a blacksmith. After that, he said it was time to settle, to pay the agreed amount and hand over the sword. He reminded them that the deal was done, and it was a pleasure doing business with them. The sword received as part of the payment is in good condition. It only needs a little adjustment to the magical code, and it can be used. He will be able to sell it. The guys said that they plan to take the promotion exam soon. With such clinics, they definitely won't have problems. Although even without that, with such swords they will definitely pass. They feel like they have been using them for years. Fake said he was glad to hear that, and advised them to be careful and take care of themselves. If they fail the test with his weapon, he will start doubting his blacksmith skills. The guy said that they will definitely manage. Vezir said he would become a swordsman worthy of this sword, and his comrade immediately supported him. After that, they said goodbye and left. Alicia said that everything worked out and they really liked it. The main character agreed and said he was glad they liked the swords. The girl happily said that she hopes they will pass and definitely manage it. She also added that they, after all, have his weapon. After some time, the main heroine said that everything was fine and the spell was over. She added that all the swords looked wonderful. At that moment, a girl approached the counter. They addressed her and said that if she wanted, she could try any sword. She pointed with her finger and said that she would like to support it. They silently looked at her. The girl asked about the price, to which the faker replied that the sword costs 50,000 crowns, and she inquired if it could be cheaper. The main character immediately thought that maybe he could give it to her for 40,000, and at that moment she came closer and said she could do him a favor. Fake said he could not lower the price much, but could drop it to 40, and at that moment Alice said that his price was only 50,000 crowns. The girl said that first of all, this variety is of quite high quality, even at the initial price. This is quite a profitable purchase. The stranger addressed Alice and asked if she was really a girl. Alice answered affirmatively and inquired what was happening, but the stranger simply said that everything was clear to her. The client said she understood everything and would buy the sword for 50,000 crowns. The main character thanked her for the purchase. After that, the girl left. It was clear that Alicia was angry. Fake asked her what happened. She wondered if he really liked big figures. He said nothing of the sort, and she said he was staring. He thought that it was not that he really liked big ones, it was just male nature, and he glanced by accident. After this, they sold 2 swords and daggers of the F rank ranked to new adventurers. The morning income amounted to 180,000 crowns. They decided to continue acting in the same spirit. After some time, a street vendor named Rick approached their stall and said that they hadn't seen each other for a long time, adding that his swords and daggers were selling very quickly in the neighboring town because he advertised them well, so a new wave of buyers would come soon. The hero asked if it was true, then said that it was wonderful and thanked him for the advertisement, and the vendor said that not only adventurers bought them, even knights took them. He also said that they started boasting in front of other knights, and then asked if that was good. The main hero wondered why knights did not receive weapons from the kingdom or their lords, and thought that in his country, the Revenald Empire, everything was exactly like that. That was why they had to enchant weapons massively every week. The vendor said that he was right, but it could not be said that the weapons he issued were of good quality. Knights who reached a certain status usually had their own weapons. That was why he was here again. He asked how many such expensive weapons they had. Fake replied that there were 10 swords and daggers. The vendor said that the goods were of excellent quality and took everything. The forger thanked him for the purchase, and the blonde already asked how much it would cost. She was told 800,000. Then the vendor said that he bought wholesale and asked for a discount, offering 700,000. The main hero said that the price would still be too low and it would harm his business. Fake suggested this option. He would add some slightly worse swords and daggers, and then it would be 760,000. The vendor agreed to his proposal, after which the weapons were packed in a wooden box, and the vendor said that he was leaving soon and for a long time, so he would not be able to come to him. The main character said that it is sad to hear this. Then the blonde said that instead of him, his student will come in a week. He said it would be a girl named and asked him to prepare several options of weapons of different quality, and even buy those she does not choose. The merchant said he wanted to check if she could correctly assess the quality of the weapon in front of her, and the main character said he understood everything and would do it. The blonde said that by that day, he must have for sale 10 swords and daggers of the highest quality and several goods of lower quality, after which he asked if he could prepare them. The hero agreed and said he would prepare everything for her arrival. The merchant replied that it was good, the servant would go with her, so he would recognize her immediately. Alicia whispered to him and asked if he was sure, because he needed to manage everything in a week. The main character said that he was already used to it, so he would manage in a week. She asked him not to overexert himself. The merchant asked how much this luxury cost. The counterfeit named a price of 1,500,000, to which the merchant offered to reduce it to 1,300,000. The main character, stunned, asked once again if he was serious, and at that moment Alicia joined the conversation, saying that it wouldn't work because the price was too low. They said they agreed to at least $1,450,000. The protagonist supported her. Then the merchant said, "Let it be so. He is ready to pay $1,400,000. Fake thought it was at least $140,000, but the girl told him not to even try and insisted that their price was $145,000 because they also agreed to help them in training the student. The merchant said that she was right. Everything would be as they wanted. He would pay that amount, and the handsome man added that he was grateful to him and they would not wait for his student until the appointed time. When he left, Fake turned to Alicia and thanked her. She said that he, as always, gives discounts too easily, and he replied that he was just glad his swords were truly needed. The girl said she understood his feelings, but his blades were a real value to her. Let the payment correspond to the skill. The main character was embarrassed by her words, after which he said that it was good, and he would try not to repeat the same mistake in the future. Alicia immediately asked about the apprentice, to which Fake explained that blacksmiths also take apprentices and often work together. The girl asked him if he really wanted to have a female apprentice, to which he immediately asked why specifically a girl. He said that he was lucky to have magic of all attributes, so he does all the workshop work himself. An apprentice is needed to distribute the duties. This is especially convenient when working with a large batch of orders. The main character grabbed the girl by the hands, said excitedly that he had an idea, and offered her to become his apprentice. The young man already imagined how he would forge together with Alicia, how much fun they would have, and that he would still see the girl in work clothes. The boy asked the girl what she thought about this idea, and she blushed and closed her eyes. Alicia apologized to the boy and told Fake that she was not as good at magic as he was. The hero crossed his arms over his chest and said that she was right, adding that since she sees magical items, she could learn blacksmithing, but everything was much more complicated. The girl was upset and thought that if she could, she would agree without hesitation. Alicia was very worried that if Fake took someone's place as a student, they would spend time together in the workshop every day. The girl screamed and the boy shouted to her and asked what happened. Alicia trembled and asked the young man not to take girls as apprentices, to which he replied that he understood her. Alicia decided to ask the boy where he learned blacksmithing, and the young man began to recall. Fake said that he was from a village and his parents were blacksmiths. Having picked him up from the street, they taught him everything they knew. The boy looked at his hand and thought that they no longer existed in this world. The girl asked him what it meant to be picked up. The boy replied that when he was little, his biological parents abandoned him and he became an orphan. Alicia was upset, and Falshava, noticing this, asked not to bother him with it because he was too young and did not remember the faces of those people. The girl looked at the boy and smiled, saying that she was lucky today and learned a little more about him. The young man smiled at such warm words. The girl joyfully said that they were very lucky today and managed to sell everything. The boy agreed with her and replied that it was not for nothing that they kept the shop open for so long. The conversation was interrupted by adventurers who called the main character, waved to him, and greeted him. Falshava's smile asked the friends if they had passed the exam. They agreed, and the boy praised them and inquired about the results. They gladly said that they passed the exam and were promoted to rank D, thanking the young man for his weapon. Faking and Alicia looked at each other. The boy said he was glad to help and congratulated them on their rank promotion. He told you that he cannot imagine how grateful they are to him because his weapon is light and convenient to use, and now they are closer to rank C. The main character smiled and said that it was not only about the weapon, because they received it not long ago, but quickly mastered it, and thanks to their abilities were able to pass the exam. They wanted to interrupt him with a refusal, but he said that if they need a weapon again, they can safely turn to him. Fake added that by that time, he would try to get better magical steel. He thinks that the current magical metal will be too little for their skills. The traveler said that he would continue to recommend them to his friends, to which the young man thanked him and wished them good luck. The heroes waved to each other again and wished to meet soon. The main character looked at the path and thought that the people who received the weapon made by him with his own hands right in front of him were rising up, and he was proud of them. The young man replied that he would not yield to them in height, and Alicia supported him. Already at the estate, the main character submitted a report stating that the total profit amounted to 1 and 2 million crowns. The man inquired about an individual order from a merchant, to which the boy agreed. The young man replied that travelers also visited the store, and gradually the goods became recognizable. The man asked if the boy felt well, and he answered affirmatively. The owner of the estate replied sadly that there was no doubt about his ability. The man fell silent, and the boy, seeing this, asked what had happened. The Duke refused, saying that the boy had received a letter, and handed him an envelope. The main character took the envelope and absent-mindedly asked if it was from Leventry. The man replied that he had also received a letter from him, which mentioned an order from the blacksmith, and that the boy was surprised. The Duke asked if he would accept the letter, to which the young man agreed, and added that if it was for a forgery, he would gladly take it on and immediately write a response. The main character thanked the man and promised not to let him down, but when he went to his room, he doubted because the order was from Lavert. The young man, recalling the client, realized that pleasing him would be difficult. The next morning the boy saw the guest, and Lavert falsely greeted him with hugs. Lever approached the boy and said he was glad that the young man had decided to order it himself, while the fake only thought about personal space, and the boy asked the guest what weapon he wanted. The client took a small box in his hands and, using magic, opened it, took out a handkerchief, and asked the boy to look at it. The hero saw metal and, illuminating it, asked if it was the magical iron Iria. The man agreed and said that was exactly why he had come to him. The young man thought about magical iron that could be extracted from the bodies of monsters, but not only from strong monsters. Everything depended on luck, and iron could even drop from the corpse of an ordinary goblin. Continuing to think that adventurers go hunting every day hoping for luck, Eluator said it was worth agreeing and inquired about the second magical material, Varia. The buyer replied that he conceded Iria, but for a blacksmith it was still a rare opportunity to show his skill on such metal, with which the young man agreed. The main character thought that Iria was almost never sold, and swords made from it were family heirlooms that were cherished, but the boy's thoughts were interrupted by the buyer, who said that was not all he had prepared for him. The boy opened the chest, and the main character saw something incredible. The chest contained the claw and fang of the dragon itself. The client agreed and said that he entered their territory and they destroyed him, and from his body they took Iria, claws, and fangs. He realized that this was exactly why he approached that man for the order. The main character replied that not everyone manages to defeat a dragon every day, and asked if he did it alone. The client refused, said that it was impossible to defeat it alone, added that knights helped him, and only their joint efforts allowed him to destroy it. The main character replied that in the end, he gained something from this victory, and it was simply incredible. The young man said that for a blacksmith, there is no better reward than to create a weapon from such rare materials. The client smiled, and I replied that I was pleased that the blacksmith was so inspired. Kosnet suggested taking Iria as a base and filling the missing volume of Varia. The young man thought that bringing Vaira was not easy, and that there was not enough space to make weapons. The main character asked if that was why he also provided material from the dragon itself, to which the client agreed and replied that according to his idea, the fang and coke should compensate for the lack of material and improve the quality of the product. The hero agreed but added that even so, the result would be worse than that of a pure alloy, and asked if he was ready to make a sword from the available materials. Levert sighed and said he understood and would have to give in because it was inevitable. The client put his hand on the blacksmith and said he placed great hopes on his skill, and the young man replied that he would not let him down. Looking at the materials, the boy thought that maybe this was the fate of all blacksmiths. The main character rejoiced seeing so many rare materials and felt a pleasant anticipation because he could not wait to get to work. The blacksmith asked what kind of weapon the client wanted him to forge. Levert took out a knife and a sword and handed them to the main character. When handing over the sword, he asked that the sword be of the same shape as this one. Fake drew the sword from the sheath and began to examine it. They say the sword combines materials Virir and Sayara. The young man began to say that the blade was forged very carefully and maximally enchanted, and the buyer agreed and added that this time he wants the boy to use dragon materials and iron to make an even more perfect blade. The main character looked at the sword and asked if inikaru could be applied to it, to which the customer replied that if the blade becomes better than the one he currently has, he does not mind and trusts his intuition. Lever added that the weight, length, and shape should be as he considers. The main character understood him and replied that he would try to make a sword that would satisfy the customer. The customer sat on a chair and began to watch the work, while the blacksmith meanwhile began to melt and mix two metals. After that, the main character acted according to the standard scheme, and there was nothing complicated about it. The bowl gave perfectly alloyed metal. The main character realized that difficulties awaited him ahead, because the dragon's fang and kakat also needed to be melted and properly mixed. The boy took the fangs and claws in his hands and felt a barely noticeable warmth, as if a heart was beating in them, and it was a very strange feeling for him. The client silently continued to watch, while the man studied the materials. The boy put the claw and fang into the bowl and realized that they did not yield to fire at all, because dragons are very resistant to high temperatures. The young man realized that he would have to finely tune the magical flow and raise the temperature to the required level. Thanks to magic, he finally managed to transform, and the claw and fang began to melt. Lever was very surprised and said that he did not expect him to understand it so quickly. The client continued that he expected nothing less from you, because usually blacksmiths do not even take on dragon materials. Only specialists deal with them, and you manage to handle them, and only a true master is capable of that. He continued melting the materials and replied that they had now completely merged. The boy took a bowl with molten metal and wanted to mix it with dragon raw material. The main character poured out the metal and began to stir. The young man exhaled and reported that the synthesis of the magical properties of all the materials was successfully completed. The customer was surprised and said that it was excellent work, to which the man thanked and replied that he would now give it shape, but it was still far from finished and asked if he would continue watching. The client agreed, said that it is not every day one can learn from such a master, and asked to be present until the very end because it is an invaluable experience. The man agreed, nodded, and took up work again. He began shaping it with a hammer, forged according to the standard algorithm, and monitored the magical indicators. Despite the compression of magical metal and dragon components, their essences were not yet harmonized. Externally, everything seemed whole, but inside they had not yet merged into one. While the boy was giving the sword its shape, and thanks to this, he intertwined the magical flows. When the alloy became whole, he deliberately destroyed its structure to create it anew, and only in this way did the steel become stronger. The young man continued to forge diligently. The client also silently observed what was happening while the boy worked. This work took the whole day, so the continuation was postponed until morning. The next morning, the client, who had already spent the night there, stood by the anvil to begin work. The final shape of the blade had already been given, but before sharpening, it needed to be checked. For a double-edged sword, balance symmetry was critically important, and the man checked if everything was perfect. The next step was to make the handle from airy metal. The main character made the handle and attached it to the sword. The main character approached the buyer with the new sword and asked if he wanted to try it before the final touches. Levert took the sword and looked at it before swinging. The man continued to wave the sword and test it in motion. Stopping, the client turned to the blacksmith and smiled. The main character asked how he liked the sword, to which he replied that it was simply wonderful, and although it was an exact copy of the original sword, it was flawless, as if forged in one go. I think he was happy about this, and said that then they should proceed to the final processing. The customer noticed that the boy's wind magic was impressive, and it seemed that mastery of all the elements helped him achieve such a level in blacksmithing. The blacksmith replied that years of training were not in vain. The main character replied that the sharpening was complete, and now it was time to move on to the last spells. Fake thought that the spells would essentially repeat those on Levert's sword, only reworked for the magical metal Ira. The blacksmith continued to smile while approaching, and the client silently watched. The sword was ready, and Levert swung again. The client began to say that the sword not only fit perfectly in the hand, the magic transmission was very effective, and the quality and precision of the spells exceeded all expectations, and the boy was glad that Levert appreciated the sword. The customer added that he himself would not be able to repair the sword if it broke. The blacksmith replied that since the alloy contained the metal urea, it would be fine for 2 months, and the customer grabbed the blacksmith's hand and said that his hands worked real miracles. The hero asked to stop this and pulled back his hand. The client thanked the blacksmith and asked to proceed to payment. Levert offered a fee of 5 million brackets, but the main hero refused and said that it was too much. The young man replied that he himself gave him all the materials, that he was immediately familiarized with the shape of the sword, and that for his services he could take 300,000 crowns. Leveret replied that he had carefully studied all the nuances and few people know how to process such material, so payment for unique skills is provided here, and iron weapons cost 10 times more. The client asked to take the chest. They say the entire amount is in the box with the things. The protagonist replied that these are the rarest artifacts that only occasionally appear in dungeons, and he cannot simply accept such a price, but the buyer insisted that the blade was worth it. The client added that a sword made of urea material can even compete with weapons made of Esli steel. Leverd said that he wants to continue working with him as a blacksmith because it will be useful and come in handy in the future. The main hero agreed and thanked the guy. The client again thanked the blacksmith for what he had done and promised to become a warrior worthy of the blacksmith. The girl told the fake that the skill was truly great because the sword gifted to Lavitri met all her expectations, and the processing of Irene's metal and dragon components was already a great achievement. Alicia happily replied that even her father was impressed, and she was confident that he would soon appreciate his skill. The fake asked if it was true, and he agreed, saying he hoped that someday it would be so, but thought it would happen if he really recognized him. The main character did not understand what exactly would change in their relationship, because he was simply a complicated fiancé and a shield from other suitors. The young man believes that if this lasts forever and he can continue to be useful to Alice, he will only be glad. The boy did not know how long they could deceive Lord Gurel. The young man thought that later, when she finds someone who truly loves her, his role would end. The main heroine realized that it all started with her compassion, because kind Alice pitied the one everyone laughed at. The young man forgot about it and began to engage in blacksmithing so desperately to gain recognition. Well, it was childish. The girl noticed the boy's mood and asked if everything was all right and if he was tired of forging the sword. He smiled sadly and replied that everything was fine. The main character said that next week the student Riga Almi would come to him and that there were still a few orders from other clients, but he hadn't even sat down to work. The girl was outraged because they said he had already spent a lot of time and effort on the last order. The boy replied that it was his hobby that brought him income, so he did not complain. Alicia called the boy. They said she asked him to rest more, but the boy replied that he was not tired. The girl said she was worried about him and asked him to rest this week. The young man replied that he could try for a change, since there was no rush, and suggested going somewhere together to eat something tasty, to which the girl agreed. The boy did not suspect what awaited him ahead. The main character thought that he would not be able to quench the thirst to forge truly worthy blades and wanted his swords to find many owners, because that was his meaning of life, and he steadfastly fulfilled the duty of a blacksmith, as his heart commanded. The owner of the house stood in his office and thought about the client who thanked him for the permission to order fake weapons from a fake supplier. Levert told him that magical iron, the magical metal of Vira's claw, and a dragon's fang could be combined into one blade, so all his hopes were fulfilled. The Duke was embarrassed and asked if such a blade could be forged. The man inquired if he could find out what he had agreed to and why it was necessary to order a fake, because they were both presidents on his daughter's hand and blacksmiths. The man replied that Lady Alicia highly appreciated his talent, and as a craftsman he wanted to test what he was truly capable of. The young man added that for him it was not easy to process and shape such materials. The Duke added that as a blacksmith he was impressed by his skill, and it was no wonder Alicia singled him out among others. The man came out of his thoughts about past conversations and turned around. There was a large chest in the room. The girl approached the chest, opened it, and looked at the sword. The man looked at it and pondered. Growl believed that he himself could fix it. Alicia told Leffy that Fake always sat in the smithy preparing for the market, and they never spent time together, so the maid suggested watching how he works. The girl replied that she would distract him, and when he was focused, he would not pay any attention to her at all. Maid, I replied that I understood her and asked to rely on her. The girl knocked on the main character's workshop door and asked to be let in. The boy agreed. The girl said that the woman had the worst happen, and the boy perked up and asked to tell what happened. The girl replied that Alicia really wanted to have tea with sweets together with him and asked him to take a short break, to which he immediately stopped working and went to Alicia. After a 2-week break, the heroes reopened the tent, took their usual places, and prepared everything for work. As always, the couple sorted all the goods by quality and added a batch for all May Rig student, and at the merchant's request, the main character forged several units of weapons of different quality, which increased the number of swords and daggers and attracted more buyers. Alicia told the boy that the box Lavert gave him turned out to be useful, and thanks to it, he could carry significantly more things. People were walking when suddenly voices of adventurers about the shop rang out from the crowd, and the boys approached the heroes. The boys asked if this was fake smithy workshop. They were answered affirmatively, and the traveler began to tell that he bought a sword from him through a traveling merchant. The young man said that this was exactly why he came personally and even allowed his boys to try the sword, because of which everyone wanted the same one, as the quality was excellent and it fit perfectly in the hand. The main character rejoiced and thanked for the praise. The swindler decided that the traveling merchant was set up and promised to advertise his goods, but the merchant himself did not expect buyers to come immediately. The travelers chose their weapons and asked to be sold daggers and swords. The main hero thanked for the purchase and named the price. The counterfeiters sold the weapons at a discount, but the order still brought in 200,000 gold. In the morning, 3 buyers immediately appeared, and that was luck. After some time, new clients appeared. Someone brought their friends, and the main hero thought that these were the ones who praised his blades and taverns. Some people came because of rumors about Ivitsa's power. Others learned everything from the merchants, and by noon the shop was filled with people. The girl said it was incredible because today there was no end to the buyers, and the boy agreed with her and said he thanked Riza for such advertising and recognition. The girl said that was right, and his apprentice should hurry because they would soon run out of blades. The main hero noticed that there were clearly more people than last time, and even if not everyone was buying, but only looking, it was already a good sign. A man with a mustache asks the main hero to buy 2 daggers and a sword, to which Alicia thanked him for the purchase. And the hours began to think about how not to sell everything. To this, the girl replied that people had started coming less often, and upon returning, they saw those they were waiting for. Ahead was a crowd of adventurers, and the student Riga Almi herself. Alma was very beautiful and, looking ahead, asked if this was a store. The main characters felt awkward and confused when they met the girl. She greeted the boy, wished him a good day, introduced herself, and asked if he was a fake, and the boy agreed and asked if she was a Regaz student. The girl laughed and replied that the teacher had already told him that she came instead of him today. Alma added that the teacher praised the boy's work and said that he makes the most amazing weapons. The boy was embarrassed and did not believe her. Alicia glanced sideways at the guest. The main character was embarrassed and replied that he prepared the weapons for them to appreciate, and Alicia was still looking at him. The young man said that he prepared several goods for them, and they could choose what they liked, to which they responded with gratitude. The youth doubted whether he was mixing quality items with fur ones, and whether Alma would notice the difference. The girl took the sword and ran her hands over it, trying to understand what it was made of. The student Riga replied that she would take this sword and daggers, 10 of each, and nothing more. The boys were surprised that the difference in appearance was not so noticeable, but the girl unmistakably chose the best. The boy smiled and replied that all this would cost the girl 1,450,000 crowns. Everyone became quiet, and the main character patiently waited for the payment, but the girl brought her fingers to her mouth and asked about the payment. Student Riga took the boy by the hand and asked for a discount. The boy was very embarrassed. Alma smiled at him innocently, and Alicia was very surprised. Gro continued to demand at least a small discount as a regular customer, but the boy tried to refuse. The young man noticed that the girl decided to seduce him, but he decided for himself that she chose the wrong boy. The main character thought that he had Alicia, whom he loved, and her actions did not repel him. The main character noticed that the girl might be disappointed in him, and for him that would mean death, so he withdrew his hand. The young man crossed his arms over his chest and refused, saying that this was the final amount. The girl replied sadly that the seduction trick did not work, but the boy had courage, so she would pay. The young man was satisfied until the girl said that the boy was a true master of his craft and did not ask where he had worked before. The main character replied that he had worked in the Empire of Revinalda, but he was lucky to move here. I added with a smile that they might still meet, so she did not say goodbye to them. The girl sent him an air kiss and wished for a quick meeting. The main character was proud of himself and thought that he was not so easy to deceive. The young man told Alice that they were lucky to sell so many weapons at a good price today, but the girl did not answer, and he became worried. Alicia asks Shayla if she still liked big boys. The main character did not understand the girl and asked what she was talking about. Alicia replied that she meant Lady Alma. The girl noticed that the boy was looking at her. He fell silent and did not know what to say. The main character began to deny everything, saying that it was not so. Alicia almost cried and replied that it was not true because she saw how he looked at her. The young man again could not answer anything and only asked her to listen, as he said that a man is a man. The main character began to explain that wild males usually react to movement, to prey, and to threat, and he could do nothing about this instinct. The girl got angry and replied that if she could not do this, it meant that she did not deserve attention. The young man tried to calm her down and said that he did not mean that. Alicia suddenly hugged the fake by the arm. The boy blushed and asked what she was doing. The girl closed her eyes and asked for permission to hug him. Alicia again inquired whether it deserved attention. The girl, holding his hand, asked if he liked girls like her, and the boy tried to stop her because first of all he liked Alicia. The main character realized that it was she who influenced his preferences. The girl sadly let go of the boy and apologized for putting him in such an awkward position. The boy replied that it was all right. The heroes were silent. Today their trade ended, and the last buyer was all May. Today they managed to earn 120,000 crowns, and it was the most profitable day at the market. Returning to the estate, the house owner replied that preparations for the battle were going well today, and the young man agreed and responded that part of the orders came from a traveling merchant. The boy bowed, said that was all, and asked for permission to leave, but the man stopped him. Gorel silently lowered his eyes while the boy waited for an answer. The man honestly replied that he was surprised by the boy's success. The young man did not understand what it was about. Gorel said he did not think that man could establish such a distribution system in a foreign country where no one knew him. The main character replied that he was just lucky and that currently most of his income depended on the merchant. If the merchant lost interest in him, his profit would sharply fall. The young man thought that many people supported him, including those who bought his works. The main character recalled that it was thanks to Alicia that he was able to achieve such heights. The man said that it might be true, but not all of his earnings depended solely on the merchant. The boy agreed and replied that fortunately a few adventurers recommended him as a partner, so little by little he became stronger. Rao replied that this means that his weapon really helps people. He added that people come back to him because of his blacksmith skills. The boy became embarrassed and thanked the man once again. The owner of the house stood up from the chair and said that he had a request for the boy. The young man replied that he would do everything he could, and the man opened the chest and took out his sword. Gurel asked if the young man could restore the sword. The main character took the sword and asked for permission to examine it. The youth tried to read the data enchanted on this sword, but squinted his eyes because he did not understand the words. The young man felt dizzy due to overload. The main character felt that there was a lot of data, as if a whole library had immediately fit into his brain. The boy thought that if the blade caused such a feeling, then it contained more magical information than he could perceive. The owner of the house asked if he was all right and requested permission to concentrate. The main character noticed that the spell was simple, but it contained an extraordinary amount of magical power. The boy noticed that there was damage everywhere, and if he used the sword in such a condition, sooner or later it would break. The forger replied that he had discovered the problem, and the man asked if he could fix it, to which he agreed and added that due to the large amount of magical information, he would not be able to do it immediately. The main character said that repairing it would take about a day. Harold was glad to hear this news. The man advised him not to rush and to do everything carefully and reliably. The hero accepted the order and replied that he would do so. The young man understood that this blade meant a lot to Lord Goro, and it needed to be repaired carefully but quickly to return it to the owner as soon as possible. The next day, the boy began working on Alicia's father's sword. The young man again tried to read the data on the sword and noticed that many innate symbols and entire sections did not work, so he would have to restore everything down to the smallest details to avoid disrupting the original magical structure. The main character realized that this sword was made from an alloy of Iranian and Helios iron. Young man, I believe that judging by the materials, he is holding the work of a true master, because the master's mark and the extraordinarily strong reserve of magic are incomparable, so this may take more time than he expected. The main character noticed that the one who wore this talisman had worked persistently on it for several days without rest. The boy understood that doing everything from scratch would be very difficult, but he would be able to handle it. The parents said that the spell on the young man had not lost its power for more than 10 years. The main character began to think that the alloy of two steels could do it, but still rejected this idea, believing that it was a matter of skill and required the abilities of a blacksmith of the highest class. The boy noticed that this meant his art had room to grow and continued working. The young man said that if he ever created such a weapon, he would make it so that it would survive centuries. He would not do it for the sake of fame or a place in history. The youth thought that it was made so that after death his blades could protect people. The hero interrupted his train of thought and continued working. By noon, most of the work was done, and the man only had to make a few final touches. Suddenly, someone knocked on the door. The boy asked the guest to come in. Alicia noticed that he was completely focused on work and asked how the sword repair was progressing. He said that most of the work was already done, only the finishing touches remained. The girl was surprised if he really managed so much in half a day, and he replied that it was a regular sword repair. The girl smiled, touched the sword, and replied that the forging was truly incredible. Alicia said that this blade was forged by her father's father, that is, her grandfather. The young man was surprised and asked where her grandfather was now. Alice replied that he died 10 years ago. The boy noticed that this meant the blade was very precious to Mr. Gurel, and the girl agreed with him. The young man thoughtfully added that he had asked him to repair such a valuable item. The boy realized that the Duke would not have entrusted him with this blade without a second thought. The girl replied that her father had tried to repair the sword, but could not and was sad about it for a long time. Alicia said that her father did not have a special talent for blacksmithing, so he could not restore the blade he inherited after his grandfather's death. The young man was very surprised by this, but understood the girl. The main character thought that this order was a test for him, and that Mr. Gorel had not yet fully appreciated his skill, but still entrusted him with his blade. The man understood that this at least meant they believed in him, and this sword probably held a dear memory for him. The main character replied that now he had even less room for mistakes, and the girl wished him good luck. The young man continued working, and several hours passed since the last inspection. The main character made the final touches, and the repair was completed. The man thought he constantly checked every detail and tried to notice any flaws. I don't understand whether he managed to reproduce the original enchantment accurately enough, because he entered the team dozens of times. The girl asked to look at the sword. The boy agreed, but warned that it might be difficult for her to see it clearly due to the lack of magical information. Alicia still took the sword and tried to read it. The girl felt dizzy, but the boy did not notice and asked if everything was all right, and she said the work was wonderful, although she only saw it briefly. Alicia replied that she felt the emotions her grandfather had put into the blade, and for her the blade seemed to come alive and was filled with new strength. The girl smiled and thanked the boy for returning the sword and restoring the former power of the Bernasto house. The main character smiled and replied that these words mean a lot to him. The boy confidently replied that he would immediately carry the sword to Lord Gurel. The girl said she was sure her father would jump for joy like a child, but the man did not believe her. The boy said he would not do it, but the girl said her father could be unexpectedly pleasant. The boy recalled that he had once seen something similar. The main character said that although he was nervous, he could no longer wait for the gentleman's reaction. The girl replied that he should run to him quickly. The Duke was very surprised and asked if he really fixed it so quickly. The young man agreed, said he had restored the sword as best he could, and asked to take a look. The man agreed and took the sword in his hands. Drawing the sword from the sheath, the man did not take his eyes off it. The Duke's gaze was sad, so the man did not understand and waited for an answer. Alicia's father began testing the sword in motion and was very surprised. The man released the sword. Alicia's father tried to read the data on the sword. The man closed his eyes, and the main character realized that the Duke was struggling. Gorel sighed wearily and agreed that this sword of his father was exactly the same as that day. The man cried with joy and said that it happened when he first trusted him with the sword. Gorel, with closed eyes, kept repeating that this was the very same sword. The man added that he never thought he would ever see his former greatness and power. The Duke bowed his head and told Fake that there is indeed an excellent blacksmith here. The boy became embarrassed and thanked his master. The young man bowed, and the man called the boy. Gurel recognizes the main character as Alicia's fiancé. The boy was very surprised by this and asked the man again. The Duke replied that only he is worthy of caring for his daughter. The main character thought that a lot of time would pass before you hear these words. The youth bowed his head again and thanked the man, but Fake's mood was depressed. The main character realized that he was only a stand-in groom for Alicia. Gaurav patted the boy on the head and told him not to make his daughter sad. The young man agreed with him. The Duke replied that his daughter is very charming and asked the boy if he agreed with that. The main character agreed with him, and the man added again that if he dared to give in to his unshakable impulse, his head would decorate the palisade. The boy was a little embarrassed but understood the man and said that if it was by mutual consent, then maybe he would allow it. The young man did not know how to react to this, so he just thanked him. The main character did not understand what was happening because they were not talking about a sword, and now this had happened. The Duke added that he should not forget the blacksmith's craft and that his hands must not lose their skill. The boy agreed and replied that he would follow his advice. Harold warned him to be on guard because when people find out he is the only suitor for his daughter's hand, many unpleasant people will appear around. The boy listened and left when the man let him go. The main character left the office and did not know what to do next. The only thing the boy understood was that first he needed to talk to Alicia about the fake engagement. Meanwhile, the girl was cleaning the main character's materials for sword making. The young man entered his smithy, and the girl greeted him. The main character asked if she had decided to tidy up a bit, and she replied that she had. The boy noticed that the girl even swept the floor and thanked her for cleaning the smithy so well. The girl blushed and laughed. Alicia asked the boy what her father said, and the young man replied that he was satisfied with the repair result. The main character added that the Duke was very pleased with what he saw, and Alicia was delighted and said that it was very good. The girl laughed again and said she would go to her father a little later because she wanted to see how happy he was. The young man smiled sadly and added that the Duke recognized him. The main character finished the sentence and said that now he could be a groom for the girl. Alicia was very surprised by this. The girl asked once again if it was true and if he had said exactly that. The young man agreed. Alicia was very happy and shouted loudly that they had finally managed to do it. The girl added that they were now officially engaged, but the boy interrupted her and called out. The young man began to talk about their fake engagement and added that he increasingly thought it was wrong to continue it any further. The girl dropped the napkin and asked the boy again what he meant. The protagonist recalled the previous conversation with the Duke and replied that Lord Gurel sincerely cared about Alicia and always put her feelings above noble formalities. The young man reminded her of the same essence when the Duke tested him as a blacksmith and a suitor for his daughter's hand. The man replied that he spoke with him as an equal, like an ordinary person, and approved their relationship despite very different statuses. The young man was very upset and added that that was why he could no longer lie to this man. The boys said that he should tell everything to the master. Fake added that there was no love in their relationship from the very beginning. Zavatok was very upset about this and did not know what to answer. The boy did not suspect that his words would cause him so much pain. The young man realized that he liked Alicia even more than he thought. The girl became upset and began to speak. At least you approached the boy and suddenly began to apologize, trying to justify yourself. The girl began to tell him that at that moment she was actually deceiving him and was very ashamed. The boy did not understand what she was talking about and asked her to explain in more detail. The girl began to explain that on the day she asked him to be her fake fiancé, all the words about cover-up and disguise turned out to be lies. Alicia said she should have told him about it earlier, but in fact the main thing was something else. The girl confessed that she was in love with Fake. The boy was very surprised by this, and the girl continued to say that she had always been in love with him. The girl smiled sadly and said again that she loved him. Alicia said that these feelings had troubled her since their first meeting. The girl said that at first he was simply interesting to her as a person. Alicia excused herself by saying that his smile was dazzling like the sun, and he had no idea how much she longed to see her again. The girl said that she fell in love with how he was obsessed with work in the forge, with a dream to become the best, and how he quietly laughed at her nonsense every moment spent together. The boy kept listening, and the girl said that she adored everything about him. The girl closed her eyes and shyly smiled at the main character. The young man was embarrassed by such a frank confession and blushed. The main character asked again if it was true, received confirmation, and the girl apologized once more for lying to him all the time. Alicia replied that she had dragged him into all this out of her own selfishness and lowered her head. The girl said that he constantly thought about how to please his father, was always kind to her, but despite this it was very hard for him, and now she had openly shown him her unrequited feelings. The boy quickly hugged the girl, pressing her to himself. The young man again began asking her about unrequited feelings and did not understand what she was talking about. The main character confessed that he also loves her with all his heart. I continued to hug the girl, and he began to confess to her that he had always loved only her. And she was his only support while he worked at the court. The young man began to explain that her presence and rare visits to the workshop were the only light for him. The young man became very upset and cried, saying that she was his salvation. He continued to say that he had always considered her unattainable for himself because, although he was a court blacksmith, he still remained a commoner, and she was the daughter of a duke. He confessed that he constantly told himself not to fall in love with her and did not allow his heart to beat faster, but still loved her and pulled away from the embrace. The young man replied that he wants to be there not as a stand-in groom, but as a real one. The boy confessed his love to her again and repeated these words several times. The girl became embarrassed and asked him not to say that. The young man did not understand why she asked that, and the girl explained that he should not say it so often. Alicia confesses that now she is making a scary face from happiness. The boy smiled and hugged the girl again. The main character asked the girl to start everything over and continued to hug her. The girl agreed and said that they were no longer fake newlyweds, but a real couple. The boy agreed with her. Alicia asked the young man why he fell in love with her when they were sitting next to each other in the smithy. The boy said that she always came to the smithy to look at him, and she agreed, adding that she just liked watching him work. The main character was embarrassed and replied that he did not know about it, but it was important to him. Holding her hand, the boy said that almost no one except her had been kind to him. The young man added that she literally saved him and helped him move forward despite everything. Alicia, upset, replied that if she had known about the bullying in the smithy earlier and noticed it, everything would have been different. The man replied that she could not be there around the clock, so it was not her fault. The young man recalled that the smith's assistants behaved politely in Alicia's presence, but as soon as she noticed a bruise on his cheek, the truth became known. The young man asked the girl to also tell him when she fell in love with him. Alicia shyly asked if he was that interested, and she agreed. The girl asked if he remembered their meeting under the tree 3 years ago. The main character recalled that it was their first meeting, and the girl replied that her mother died that year. The boy was very surprised and replied that he did not know about it because he had never seen Alicia's mother and did not think about where she was, and the girl added that her mother last advised her to find what makes her happy. Alicia explained that she had only mechanically learned etiquette in magic and fencing, and did it not because she liked it or it gave her pleasure, but because it was expected of her. Alicia said that when she was overwhelmed by heavy thoughts, she decided to go out to her mother's favorite tree to breathe fresh air. It was there that the girl met a smiling young man. The boy felt ashamed and remembered how he was once full of hope, but after a few hours found himself in despair. The girl recalled that she had asked him a very stupid question, but at their first meeting, he answered it so sincerely and kindly. Alicia added that she kept his smiling face in her memory and looked for him with her eyes at every ball, and then realized that she had fallen in love. The young man was embarrassed and asked if she had found the job she wanted. The girl smiled and nodded, saying that she wanted to live with him. Alicia added that she wanted to laugh with him at silly things and share difficult and joyful moments. The girl said that she wanted to be there when he became the best blacksmith in the world and see it first. The boy looked at the girl and listened to her while she spoke, as if that was all she wanted right now. Alicia asked if it sounded strange, and the boy just smiled. The main character replied that it was not strange, and he was incredibly happy that she would stay with him, because nothing could be better. At some point he forgot about the dream of becoming the best blacksmith in the world, because then he only thought about how to get out of hell, and there were days when he seriously believed that holding on to the title of blacksmith was not worth it if it did not help him escape. But now the main character knew that he wanted to become the best for the sake of his beloved. The realization did not come immediately, but a little later, when the main characters finally opened their hearts to each other. The couple stood in the Duke's office, and the man said that Alice had received another invitation to the ball, just like fake. The Duke added that one of the 2 letters had reached him, and he had read it. The man handed over the envelope, and the boy saw that it was from the palace smithy. The main character sighed, saw that the sender was Morgan, and did not understand what he wanted from him after so many years. The boy unfolded the paper. The letter was from Morgan. The girl noticed the focused expression on his face and asked what was written in it. The letter said that the guild was now declining, so it was becoming harder to provide knights with quality weapons. Every blacksmith worked without rest. The young man said a phrase into the air for his companion to return as soon as possible. The man lifted his eyes from the paper and looked at the boy. The letter he received asked him to deliver a message to Fake if he still worked at the estate, and if he had been dismissed, to apologize for the inconvenience. The young man understood everything, but thought that if it turned out to be useless, he would be thrown out, and that was exactly what was stated in the message. The Duke crossed his arms in front of him and told his interlocutor that he had heard rumors about the ruthless exploitation of the boy at court, and asked if he was not afraid to return there, because then the boy would again experience the same treatment. The boy lowered his head and said sadly that most likely that would be the case. He was directly asked about returning. If he cared about the welfare of the house, the title of Imperial Court Blacksmith of Revenold was a worthy position. The boy silently looked at the man and listened to his words. Fake himself thought that since he would become part of the Duke's family, the man's reasoning about benefits seemed justified. The title of Imperial Blacksmith could glorify the Duke's family. The man added that for a nobleman such calculation made sense, but asked to remember that power was not the only goal of their estate. The boy was surprised and at first did not believe what he heard, but the man explained that it was about power and the happiness of children. This was where balance was needed. Both factors were taken into account in the choice. So the man could not allow his son to go where he would be unhappy. The young man and the girl froze in surprise. They did not expect to hear such a thing. The girl blushed, a smile appeared on her face. She closed her eyes, surprised because it seemed that the father had begun to consider his son not genuine, and the man began to justify himself so that he would not be misunderstood. The fact that Alicia was still unmarried was exclusively because of Lord Gurl. With her beauty and status, she could have been engaged long ago. He truly put the girl's happiness first. The boy bowed and at the same time said that he did not want to return to the Empire. Gurl was silent for a moment, then offered to write the refusal himself because it would look more weighty. The blacksmith thanked him for the help. He still believed that the boy was used as expendable material in the Empire. Alicia interrupted her father, and he asked what she wanted. The girl decided to deliver the letter to the blacksmith. She had to go to the ball, so it was an opportunity to bring it personally. The father did not understand why she needed these extra troubles, especially since she did not like attending such events. The question arose again, why did she need this? Alicia received invitations only because everyone thought she was free, and now she had the chance to show her fiancé to the whole world. Her words made the young man blush. The father thought about his daughter's words, then turned to Fake and asked if he agreed to this. He answered affirmatively, and the man was pleased with his response. The boy thought that if Alicia was ready to go to the ball for this, then he should too. Besides, the young man wanted to show everyone that their relationship was real. The man agreed, promised to prepare the letter himself, and asked the boys to get ready to leave. When they were alone, Fake thanked his fiancée, but she decided it was not worth doing. She wanted to deliver the letter publicly, and the senders behaved quite arrogantly. The girl was angry that the Empire dared to look down on her husband. She shouted loudly for them to work in their workshop, and they went crazy with envy because a blacksmith genius like Fake was not theirs. Alicia placed her hands on her fiancé's stomach and assured them that if they found out that the young man became a member of the Barnasto family, those people would be disgraced. The young man was glad that his fiancée had done so much for him, and if not for her, he would not have been able to stand beside her at that moment. Alicia was embarrassed by his words. She believed it was not true because he also helped her a lot. It turned out that the girl's dream of happiness was to walk beside the Fake. He could only utter something incomprehensible, but he thought about how, when it turned out, Alicia began to talk more often about her feelings. She completely agreed with him, and in a moment hugged him. The Fake responded with hugs, and unexpectedly the girl confessed her love to him. But at these words, the young man froze in stupor. It was unusual for him, and he did not know how to react. Their eyes met, and although she was nervous, the girl felt very happy. The boy smiled looking at her. Alicia asked him if his heart really beat just as wildly. The boy decided to joke in response. If he became even happier, he would risk simply bursting with joy. Alicia laughed. Her fiancé's words amused her. The Fake looked at her with loving eyes, thinking that before he could live alone, he would look at other lovers. He could not understand how it was possible to spend so much time together, but now every day with Alicia was joyful. They decided to stop the conversation. It was time to start preparing for departure. The man angrily hit the table with his fist. Open envelopes and letters lay nearby. Looking at them, he trembled. He was going crazy from the anticipation, not understanding why there was no response, and thought they were mocking him. The boss felt humiliated because the blacksmith did not send a letter in reply. He tightly clenched the paper in his hand and muttered to himself that if there was a fraudster next to Lady Alicia, he must immediately send a response, and if not, at least the Barnasto house would honor him with such a distinction. The man remembered how he addressed other blacksmiths from the workshop. He had to crawl on his knees and beg them, so some still returned. Moreover, he humbled his pride for survival, and these people left him without an answer and did not even think of returning. But the most important of them turned out to be a fake. The commander could be mistaken, and the young man was not an excellent blacksmith. Grabbing his face with his hands, the man recalled something that might slightly improve his situation. In memories, the son called his father for help. Without his support, the boy would have perished. He hoped that his father would not abandon him. The expectations were not met. The father did not help. Since the commander knight decided to get rid of his son, he automatically ceased to be a member of their house. He was already settled through connections, and instead, he was expelled from the guard. He let down the family, and the house's status fell to the level of a yard dog. The son should have been glad that he was simply expelled and not asked to pay. Morgan was still begging his father to give him a chance and cried, but the father sternly decided to expel his son from the family. Thus, the boy lost his home and family and was forced to hide where he was now. The office went the same way and the people fled. Who were they? He was torn from his thoughts by voices discussing Lady Alicia and her fiancé, who turned out to be a fake. The man did not want to believe it. He could not understand how it happened. At that moment, a carriage arrived and footsteps were heard throughout the district. The couple got out of the carriage, smiled, and looked at the palace. The boy thought about how long it had been since he was there. The ball will take place in the royal castle. Many nobles from other countries have arrived there, and the servants are bustling in different directions. The whole situation reminded the boy of the past. They squeezed their hands tighter. The long daily journey is tiring, so Alicia suggested resting a bit. They had already prepared one of the rooms right in the palace, and the boy panicked a little. He heard that most nobles rested there during the ball. This was done so that guests would not have to stay in inns and could comfortably stay in the empire. At least that's what Leify told Fack. This time he came as an attractive fiancé, and the boys stood in the middle of a huge, luxuriously furnished room. The couple usually lived together, and although they were not yet married, they were already officially considered husband and wife. Realizing this, they both blushed with embarrassment. The girl happily said that the time had come when they started living in one room, and Fake got very nervous and only quickly agreed with her. He recalled Mr. Goral's stern face when he warned him not to do anything foolish, because otherwise he might regret it, so the young man decided to spend the night somewhere on the sofa. The bride, on the contrary, was shining with happiness. She asked the fiancé if he was happy, but the boy was confused and asked her the same. The girl hugged him, looking into his eyes, and was very happy. He himself also understood that he could not help but be happy when his beloved was near, but he was ashamed to say it. They continued to stand silently and embrace. There was a knock on the door from outside, and Alicia and Fake were asked to allow entry. It was Leify. The boy opened the door. The maid apologized for disturbing their rest. She introduced several young people who wanted to greet the couple. Fake quickly returned to Alicia. Girl gave her agreed. He shyly asked if he should go with her, but the bride decided that the boy did not want that. But the young man dismissed her fears. Now, as her husband, he had to personally accompany her. Then endless greetings began, and aristocrats kept arriving with mouths open in surprise. Their faces twisted in shock for a moment. It turned out that rumors about the engagement had also reached them. Some recognized Fake when he worked as a blacksmith in the Empire. Their cheeks twitched as they tried to maintain a friendly mask. From the expressions on their faces, it was clear that no one expected to see a commoner as Alicia's chosen one. They quickly approached the man, and he opened the door, apologizing to the girl. And at that very moment, the one who entered froze mid-sentence. They looked at each other in stunned silence. The boy looked at the man with horror, trying to understand what was happening and how the forgery got there. The boy's heart began to beat wildly. He placed his hand on his left side. The girl looked at him anxiously. Morgan, stunned, asked her why she came to the ball with the blacksmith. The girl explained without hesitation that the one pretending to be someone else was her fiancé. What he heard shocked the man even more. The boy was silent. After a while, Morgan spoke and addressed the girl. It was said that she could only marry a skilled blacksmith. She confirmed his thoughts. That was exactly the case, so the hero became her fiancé. The man considered the boy untalented and incapable of creating something unique, but the girl disagreed again, because for her, the young man was a skilled blacksmith and master of his craft, and his skills were recognized by Lord Gurel. A maid appeared behind her, holding an envelope in her hand. She handed the letter to Morgan. It was a response from Duke Barnasto to his recent letter. Fake's face tensed even more. The girl looked at him sadly. After reading the letter, the man bared his teeth in anger. The next moment he exploded and shouted at the boy, outraged that he was not going to return to the palace, and even dared to be insolent to him. The young man was frightened by such a reaction. Drops of sweat appeared on his face from the tension. Morgan's piercing gaze made the blacksmith flinch. He could not say anything. The youth tried to come to his senses, because that boy no longer served the man before him, so he could not have power over him. But before his eyes flashed memories of how Fake had suffered many times at Morgan's hands, and this clearly left a deep mark in his memory. All these 3 years of pain still pierced the young man's body. He trembled more and more strongly, and his voice stuck in his throat, and he understood that from the outside it looked pathetic, so he needed to pull himself together quickly. Suddenly Alicia took his hand, their fingers intertwined, and the girl smiled quietly, which calmed the boy. He realized that the fiancé was only saving him, and thanks to this Fake was able to pull himself together. The hero refused the former master, and confidently said that he was not going to return to the palace. He wanted to live as Alicia's man and be a blacksmith. At first Morgan was surprised by this statement, but then his anger overwhelmed him again, and he clenched his jaw even tighter. The girl did not remain silent and intervened. She did not know why he had such a strong desire to return to Fake, but as his fiancé, she did not want to let him go to where injustice and abuse reigned. The man literally trembled with strong negative emotions. He believed that he had done so much for this young man. Unable to restrain himself, Morgan lunged at the boy, swinging to hit and teach him a lesson for such a price. His fist was stopped by hands. Leifai pretended to get up, and while the man was in that state, she twisted his arm behind his back, forced him to lie on the floor, and immobilized him. He cursed the girl to let him go. He was angry that the maid allowed herself to treat him that way. Leifai was outraged that Morgan wanted to harm her master, and warned the man not to forget Fake's connection to the Duke's family. Anyone who wants to harm Duke Barnest will get what they deserve. Morgan trembled on the floor and crawled toward the boy, who tensed at his approach. Suddenly Morgan howled loudly, feigned pleading, and wanted to retract his earlier words to show they were untrue. He decided to honestly say that if the blacksmith did not return, he would lose his position at court. The man hoped that the title of court blacksmith would also benefit the boy himself. Alicia answered instead of the fiancé that they did not need this title. The boys had already discussed everything with her father, and he supported their decision. Morgan cried but then heard footsteps above him. Faker repeated once again that he would not return and thanked them for all their years together. The farmer grabbed the young man by the leg to prevent him from leaving and continued to plead. He was even ready to fulfill any request, but the young man irritably asked to be let go. The man was grabbed by the hand. Leffe did not want him to touch the master with his hands. The girl threatened him that if he did not listen again, she would have to report his behavior. Morgan began to sob even more strongly and sadly. Morgan left the room, pretending to silently look at him, and his fiancée smiled. Finally, the boy sighed with relief at the very moment the girl hugged him and supported his resilience. She was pleased with how he held himself before the former boss, and he thanked her in response. The young man hugged his fiancée and told her about his feelings at the moment Morgan appeared. His whole body trembled with fear. He recalled those terrible days in the forge at the court. Fake would not have been able to get out of that place alone. Everything happened thanks to Alicia. The girl believed that the hero himself had done a lot. The young man understood one thing well. He was not going to return to the palace, knowing the difficulties ahead, but together with Alicia, they would be able to overcome them. On the city street, Faken and his fiancée were trading. The girl was counting the proceeds because they sold everything during the day and earned 800,000 crowns. Recently, sales had hardly grown, and now this was their maximum. The boy thought that considering the quality of work, efficiency, and the magical iron, raising the price would not work. To increase sales, it was necessary to use quality materials, but where to get them remained to be understood. He wanted to consult with Rig, but doubted whether it made sense now. The current income amounted to 830,000 crowns. The Duke also noticed that sales were not increasing. The young man apologized, although there was no need for it. The man opened the drawer and placed sheets of paper with articles on the table, asking Fake to review them. After examining what was inside, the boy asked what it was, and the father explained that the building was originally constructed as a forge and all the main tools were already in place. The premises were put up for sale, so the Duke was interested in the false opinion on the matter, but the young man did not understand the hints. That is why Gurel immediately suggested he open his own workshop. This could increase his recognition and simplify sales, so the hero began to get nervous thinking about his workshop. He tried to justify the necessity of learning noble manners and other duties, but the father interrupted him and conspiratorially said that the boy's dream was to become the best blacksmith in the world. Alicia told this to her father, but the Duke decided that the man might have already changed his mind and abandoned the intention. Fake Kaisen, to convince the father that he was mistaken, said that his dream remained the same, but other, more important things had appeared. What exactly interested Gürel? The young man blushed and, feeling ashamed, said that he wanted to become a worthy man for Alicia. Honestly, he decided that the girl was too good for him because she was noble, kind, and beautiful, and to be with her the boy wanted to study. If he, an uneducated commoner, appeared in society, it would tarnish the girl, so Fake did not want to allow that. The father gaped in surprise. He was very astonished by what he heard. Then the Duke agreed that the young man absolutely needed to master noble etiquette, and he had already arranged for a teacher. However, he told the hero to know that the worthy man for Alicia was the best blacksmith in the world. Despite the importance of etiquette, Goro wanted the boy to strive for perfection. That was what he considered important. The man hoped to convey this to Fate. The words inspired the young man. He willingly agreed, and this pleased the Duke. The father offered the blacksmith to take the chest with money. The young man was embarrassed and hurried to explain that he could not accept it, but the blacksmith insisted that he open it and look inside. The boy did as he was told. The chest turned out to be full of coins. Goro asked not to worry because Fake earned this money himself, and the man only added a little, and it was not even worth thinking about. After all, the young man was the fiancé of his daughter. Therefore, Goro's only wish was that he become the best blacksmith in the Barnasto family. The young man was pleasantly surprised and promised. 3 years ago, Alicia was sad. Placing her hand on the back of the sofa, she recalled the words of the boy when he asked what she wanted, and he had one such wish. He wanted to become the best blacksmith in the world. When he spoke about it, he was full of enthusiasm. The girl said his name aloud to herself. As far as she remembered, that boy was about her age, maybe a little older. She recalled how happy he looked when he told her about his dream. Alicia felt a strange sensation inside and pressed her hand to her collarbone. For some reason she did not understand, the girl could not get his smile out of her head. She felt a previously unknown sensation in her chest. Her heart ached, but at the same time it was warm and pleasant, and the maid, noticing the lady's strange behavior, began to worry if she was all right. Alicia got scared because Liffy appeared so suddenly that she didn't have time to notice, so she asked her not to sneak up and not to scare her anymore. They called her several times, but the girl was lost in thought, so the servant became worried that something might have happened. Alicia blushed, caught red-handed, brushed off the suspicions, and assured him that everything was fine. Veffy had not calmed down since the mistress returned from Revenold. She was constantly confused, and the girl's words seemed nonsense to her. The maid decided to go last. She hinted directly that she might have met someone in the city. The aristocrat worried that they might have been seen, but it seemed she did not notice. The young woman looked meaningfully at the girl, and the girl became increasingly embarrassed. The maid recalled that the Duchess had become very pensive after her solitary walks. Alicia was impressed by her interlocutor's wit. She did not hesitate and asked directly if Alicia was really in love, which was a shock to the girl, leaving her speechless. The young lady denied everything, but the maid noticed her flushed cheeks. At first glance, everything was clear. Still, Liffy had cared for her lady since her birth, so she noticed any changes in her. Trembling with shame, the girl still decided to tell, but not about the fact that she had fallen in love. The maid asked leading questions to help her understand, asking if she constantly thought about the young man. Alicia herself did not know what she felt for him. Eventually, the aristocrat agreed that she really constantly thinks about that man, but she finds it hard to understand whether it is love, because she has never suffered and never felt anything like it. They met only once, talked a little, and everything happened very suddenly. Lifa was delighted. Obviously it was love at first sight. The girl was surprised by such a formulation. Her face was still flushed. The maid tried to find out what feelings Alicia felt when she thought about the young man. Alicia answered uncertainly, thinking that she liked him. But when the young lady recalled their conversation, her heart felt warm. His smile was sincere and inspiring. After her mother's death, all of Alicia's days became empty and gray. When she met the young man, it seemed to her as if a part of the world had returned to her, and Lifa was saddened by her story. However, Alicia believed that all this did not mean that she was in love. The maid supported the girl under any circumstances, and these wonderful feelings were very important. She sincerely rejoiced that such a person had appeared in this lady's life. The servant advised giving feelings a chance if he was really dear to her. Perhaps this energetic young man would support her, walk beside her, and love her with all his heart. Alicia asked her interlocutor if she had ever fallen in love, and the girl pondered before answering. It turned out that Lefa had never experienced this before. She decided to tell the truth. The mistress was surprised because the servant was older than her. The girl explained that she simply had not met a suitable partner. There were almost no men in their house, and Leify especially devoted herself entirely to caring for Eliza in that house. She simply had no time for personal life and romance. She was content that her master was happy. She felt the same, so they just wanted to continue observing their feelings. She suggested that on the next visit to Revenald, they talk to the young man to check if the feeling was genuine. The girl liked the idea of the next meeting. She decided to finally talk to him and thanked Leify for her support. The maid promised to wait for good news from her. Later, Alicia was invited back to Revenald, where Fake lived. Usually the girl did not like balls and went there reluctantly every time. But now she felt lighthearted because she would see the young man again after a long separation. Morgan met the girl and greeted her. She recognized the blacksmith from the workshop, and due to family matters, they had politely greeted each other several times, but she did not want to see this man at all. The man kindly asked why she had come to the palace, and the lady told him about the blacksmith Fate who had started serving at the court. Morgan was embarrassed when he heard that name. He was worried that the man might have caused some trouble, so he immediately apologized to Lady Alicia for the inconvenience. The girl reassured him that the young man was not to blame for anything, as he was new in the shop and just wanted to say hello. Morgan understood what was happening. The forgery was being made in the workshop, so he offered to accompany the lady there. When they approached, before the door opened, a characteristic knock sounded, and a man shouted that he would come in. A young man was working on a sword when guests entered the room. He immediately asked the master how he could help, but suddenly a girl appeared nearby, and their eyes met. He called her by name, and the aristocrat was surprised that he remembered her name. The man noticed something strange. She wanted to greet the new face in their shop, but it seemed they were already acquainted. To his question, they answered that only once. Alicia pretended to remember the young man's name, although she knew it by heart. The boy was delighted and flattered that such a girl remembered him. Suddenly, it became awkward between them. The chief silently observed them. Suddenly, the lady addressed him, thanked him for the escort, and allowed him to return to his official duties. She wanted to talk a little with Sir Fake and then leave. Morgan agreed to do what she wanted, but he looked at that man with hostility, and the man felt awkward. Before leaving, the man put his hand on the hero's shoulder as if giving advice on how to behave, but in fact, he squeezed that spot tightly with his fingers and trembled with anger at that moment, which surprised the girl. Alicia was very nervous, so they addressed her by surname, as if formally. She felt awkward because of such formality, since at the first meeting she introduced herself by name. The girl gathered courage and asked the boy not to observe formalities, but he did not understand her request. She said that he could call her Alicia. The young man was very surprised that he could address her by name if he was not an aristocrat. The girl apologized. She did not think that it would embarrass him, and the young man believed that it was not so. He was just an ordinary man. She confessed to him that there were few peers in the palace, so she would like to communicate with him sometimes, possibly even become friends if the young man did not mind. The girl herself was surprised by her words. The young man did not know what to say. The girl was worried that he might refuse, but Fake agreed, called her by name, and was only glad of such an opportunity. Alicia was sincerely surprised by the sudden agreement, apologized if her request seemed selfish, although there was nothing wrong with it, and the girl again clarified whether he wanted to be her friend. The boy was, of course, glad and wanted to thank the aristocrat for it. In that case, Alicia asked if the young man would return if from now on she visited him. Fake smiled, agreed, and said that she could come any time she wanted. The girl shyly wished him success at work when he was saying goodbye. They waved to each other goodbye as they left. Alicia became even more convinced that she wanted to get closer to Fake. After that, every time she came to the ball, she immediately ran to the young man in the smithy. At first, they were awkward to communicate, but later the nervousness disappeared. She always loved being near the boy, and at such moments time flew very quickly. She wanted their meetings to last forever, and the feelings grew stronger with each conversation. Fake voice, smile, character, way of thinking and topics of conversation, as well as kindness and desire to become the best blacksmith in the world, aroused feelings in her. Little by little, step by step, Alicia began to love him for everything that was only in him. But once during such a meeting, the girl, as always, looked into the workshop. Swords were scattered on the floor, and the boy sat nearby gloomy. She greeted the young man, but there was no immediate response. The hero turned to her. His clothes and face were dirty. He asked if she had come to visit again and apologized for being so tired. Alicia felt that something was wrong, and it had been going on for quite a long time. She anxiously asked about his condition. Maybe something had happened in the workshop. The hero tried to distract her, said he had a lot of work and didn't even have time to change clothes, so he stood before the guest all dirty. The girl was understanding and suggested coming to him another time. Vic always told her the same thing, but even she felt that he was no longer the same. In the workshop, she met only forgeries. At first, Alicia thought she was lucky because the boy was inside alone. But when she thought about it, she began to realize that she had never seen anyone else working in the workshop. And the young man exhausted himself every day right before her eyes. The boy's clothes were worn and dirty. It seemed as if he had never left the forge and worked day and night. Alicia was very sad and worried about this. Leffe told her lady without investigation, just looking at the facts. The tired appearance, working alone, and worn clothes indicated ill treatment and oppression from other blacksmiths. Alicia agreed it was the only possible option, but she was tormented by the question of what to do about it. As a foreigner, she could not influence this situation. The only option left was for the fighter to confess everything himself. The girl pondered, but the young man dreamed of becoming the best blacksmith in the world. If he told the truth about the bullying in court, he would most likely be dismissed, and he would step back a few steps from his dream. Fake was driven by a dream and devoted himself to it so much that he was ready to put up with successful treatment. Alicia was in despair because the young man shut himself off and did not talk about what troubled him. She feared that one day he would not be able to live like that. Suddenly, the maid proposed a crazy idea to save the young man. She suggested the lady ask Fake to become her fiancé. Alicia was surprised by such a proposal. Leffe reminded her that their country is famous for blacksmiths, and in the Bernasto house there are all the conditions for blacksmith work, and if Lord Gurel learns about his daughter's desire, he will definitely approve such a candidate. The aristocrat understood that if the young man became her fiancé, his position would also change, and as a member of the Duke's family, he would receive various duties and have to master etiquette. She feared that all this would distract Fake from his goal, and people would start seeing him not as a skilled blacksmith, but as the fiancé of the Duke's third daughter. Leffe agreed with her. Becoming her fiancé, the young man would have to deal with many other matters. It would be much harder for him to focus on his favorite occupation. However, Alicia forgot that Fake was a talented blacksmith with a strong and unwavering will. Since even the court entourage did not break his desire, life as the fiancé of the Duke's daughter would not shake him either. Moreover, the maid asked the girl if she loved him, and Alicia confirmed this and wanted to help him in any way. From Leffe's point of view, the Fake would be much happier with her mistress. She thought that the lady also felt mutual interest towards him, which is why he always found time for her. As a sign of support, the interlocutor took the woman by the hand. In any case, she should have proposed her idea to him. If he did not want to, no one would force him. Alicia was inspired that Leffe thought so. The maid could not even imagine who could be against becoming Barnasto's fiancé. The girl pondered. She imagined a person with a fake smile and her face changed. She thanked the servant for his help. She decided to talk to the young man and was confident that she could make him happy because she herself wanted him to become her husband. The maid smiled and wished the lady good luck. After some time, Alicia arrived at the palace and went to the workshop. There she found the Fake lying on the floor, all battered. She thought in despair that the blacksmiths were not even ashamed to leave bruises on his face, approached him and called out. The girl touched the young man's forehead and he opened his eyes. Suddenly Fake jumped up, shouting that he hadn't finished working on the sword, but then noticed Lady Alicia in front of him. Fake was sleeping peacefully in his bed, in his room in the Duke's house. The girl wished him good morning, and this woke the boy up. Seeing his gently smiling fiancé before him, he was scared that he was still in his room. His beloved had only come to wake him and apologize if she had frightened him. Coming to his senses, the boy also wished her good morning. He was surprised that he had slept so long. The boy was nervous. Although officially they were considered fiancé and fiancée, they did not spend the night in the same bedroom. The girl apologized for not waking him immediately because he was sleeping so sweetly. The boy paid no attention, said it was all right and was grateful that she had come, but he was also curious about what time it was. Alicia said it was only 7 in the morning, but her father wanted to see the hero, so she suggested going to him together. The hero jumped out of bed and learned about Lord Gurel and that matter, so he needed to hurry. Fake valued his relationship with his fiancée, and finally their engagement, which had only existed in imagination, became real, so he could not lose what was so dear to his heart. All matters concerning marriage were decided by the parents. Simply put, Faye can eat it to maintain good relations with the father of her fiancé so that he does not even think about breaking off the engagement. Alicia stopped the young man. He had disheveled hair, and she wanted to help tidy it up. The man approached the mirror. His hair was clearly not in the best condition, so he needed to fix this mane as soon as possible. He began to imagine what the Duke would think of him and did not want to give his daughter to such a slob. The girl called the groom, offered help, and seated him on a chair, preparing a comb and water. She gently and carefully combed his hair and styled it. Fake could not hold back and asked the bride to forgive him for the inconvenience caused, and for Alicia this seemed nonsense, because one of her duties as a future wife was to help her husband take care of his appearance. The boy asked her if she really thought so, and blushed with satisfaction. The bride poked him in the cheek with her finger and laughed at his chubby face. The hero made exactly the same movement and noticed that her cheeks also blushed deeply. Alicia became embarrassed and tried to justify herself. Fake pointed to her ears. They also turned red. His future wife was clearly embarrassed, and her cheeks were very soft. Alicia got offended and threatened that if he didn't stop teasing her, she would no longer help him comb his hair, and the boy joked that it was too harsh a punishment. He confessed to her that until that morning, no one had ever helped him tidy his hair. This made the young man feel unusual, and the girl was surprised because servants always helped her with hair and makeup. That was how it was among the nobility, and the young man decided to start asking servants for help too. Alicia puffed out her cheeks. She did not agree to that. She wanted to help with the styling herself. Fake was surprised and asked if she was sure she wanted to do it every day, because such work was quite tiring. She began to scold her fiancé. He was very narrow-minded. She did not understand why he did not understand her true intentions. The girl confessed that she loved the young man very much, so she wanted to help him in everything she could. And seeing him sleepy in the morning, with slightly tousled hair, was the best reward for her. Alicia suddenly realized that the boy was against it. She was only thinking about herself, but maybe Fake really did not like it. The hero was so embarrassed that he blushed even more, but then he finally said that he really liked her care. Pride, hugging his knees, happily declared that that was the decision. The hero panicked. If she came to him every morning, his heart would not withstand such care. Until recently, the young man could not imagine that they would become husband and wife. All these moments seemed like a dream to him, but he still could not relax. They were still the groom and the bride. The young man had to work harder to become the best blacksmith in the world and a worthy husband for Alicia. The girl finished doing her hairstyle, and the boy, seeing the result, praised her for the wonderful work. She reminded him that he had dried his hair with wind magic because it was still wet. Then the woman took clean clothes from the chair to give them to the groom. The girl was happy, but when the boy asked her to wait behind the door while he changed, Alicia immediately became confused, and all the joy disappeared from her face. She ran out of the room, slamming the door in embarrassment and apologizing for such nonsense, while the young man thought that from now on his mornings could be like this. The boys entered the hall where the Duke awaited them, and the young man wished them a good day and apologized for being late. The father inquired why they were delayed. Leffe appeared from behind the door and slyly told about their sad flirtation with each other. The couple looked at her side confusedly, but the girl was no longer visible. Gurul was surprised and apologized for making the boys come early in the morning, but suddenly it dawned on him. The Lord fearfully thought about another meaning of flirting and looked at Fake in fright because he promised him not to do foolish things. He was quickly calmed down, being explained that he misunderstood everything. Alicia only helped the young man comb his hair after waking up, and that was all. The father calmed down but still called him quite early because he had business that day and wanted to talk before leaving. He asked Fika if this person still wanted to obtain an aristocratic education. The hero gladly confirmed his desire, especially since all matters in the palace were settled at that ball. That day the young man was completely embarrassed. Greetings, basic manners, even dancing. Everything turned out terribly. Nothing could be done about it. He had always lived as a commoner, far from the palace, but now it could no longer be so. He needed to learn the basics. Goral was in no hurry. The young man rarely appeared in public, and his workload would immediately increase. The hero did not agree with him. He could not humiliate either Alicia or Lord himself. In that case, the father decided to entrust this matter to Alicia and Leif. They are quite competent, and it would be easier for Fake himself to study with close ones in his free time. Lesha was happy. Now they could spend time together and study. Faked also did not object. He thanked his father-in-law. The father advised not to overdo it and not to forget about his main duty. The young blacksmith agreed again. Then it was time to move on to more important topics, and Laura showed a small book that was in his hand. He handed it to Fake. The conversation was about buying his shop. It was time to choose where to live. The man prepared several options, from which you can choose any. The boy remembered that they had not yet decided when and where to open the workshop. There were many different options. Among them were Fake's, and Alicia examined them carefully. One of the proposed buildings caught the man's attention. This shop turned out to be very cheap. A strange expression appeared on Lord's face when the guys noticed this house. The girl decided the same, so the price was 3 times lower than the others, and it was located on Adventure Seekers Street. There was not just a warehouse, but also a whole stock of feed, and right there was a living area. Other premises also had forges, but they were either cramped, or the equipment was weak, or the location was unfortunate, and none of them could compare to this shop. It was the best of all possible options. The father clarified whether the young man had chosen it. The Duke came to his senses. Gurul, of course, added it to the list, but would not recommend this option. Alicia asked her father why he had such an opinion. The conditions were really good, but the price was suspicious, so it was clearly a trap. There was a ghost living there, and Gurul said it very seriously. The hero was confused and asked his father-in-law what he meant. The girl trembled with fear when she heard about the ghost, and the boy was even more surprised by what the man was saying. If he were talking about monsters, it could be believed, but ghosts do not exist. The previous owner and the one before him quickly left the estate precisely because of the ghost that appeared there. According to rumors, a blacksmith once died there. The boy did not particularly believe such tales. The spirit of the deceased wandered around the workshop, so the Duke was against this option. Alicia was angry and scared. She scolded her father for even suggesting that terrible place to them. Gurul justified himself by saying that there was really good equipment there and decided to show it for completeness. Fake honestly admitted it because he really did not believe in ghosts and other mysticism, so it did not bother him at all. The fiancé, on the contrary, was confused and almost hysterical, but it still seemed like the best option, and the rumors could be made up. The boy was still surprised why the previous owners refused the shop. Maybe it was just a coincidence. It is not worth rejecting this option because of silly rumors about ghosts. It is a wasted loss because the place is very convenient, and although it is on the outskirts of Adventurers Street, it is ideal for business. If you open the workshop, many potential clients will pass by. Fake was supposed to become the best blacksmith in the world and be worthy of the title of Alicia's husband. He did not yet know what would make him the most outstanding, but he definitely did not want to be the owner of a losing shop, and to realize his plans, the young man needed a place. This spot was perfect. Having looked at his family, the young man saw that these two were scared, so there was no point in pressuring them. He suggested that they just go into the store and look around before making a decision. The owner asked if Fake was really not afraid, but the young man did not back down, because if it were some creepy monster, that would be another matter, but this was an ordinary ghost, so there should be no problems. Ghost monsters and ordinary ghosts are different things. Demons can be defeated, but ghosts cannot. Rumors about ghosts sometimes appeared, but they were doubtful and the Fakes explained nothing. Geralt allowed him to choose any option he liked. He agreed in advance and took the keys. Taking the bundle, the hero thanked the father, and with that the conversation ended. It was time for the father to attend to his affairs. The boy was happy because he had a plan for the day and suggested to his fiancée that this time she go shopping personally. The girl hesitated. The young man decided that she did not want to, but Alicia was worried about the house where the ghost lived. He confirmed that they also needed to see it. He was surprised that the fiancé was so afraid. He thought she was sweet. Then the hero suggested going alone, but Alicia, although afraid, did not want to let him go. She was also going to go. Since they ran the store together, although they were not officially married yet, she had to be resilient and strong as the future wife of a blacksmith. The hero looked at her gently, called her to set off on the journey, and asked her not to worry because he would be nearby. The couple, together with the knights and Leffe, set out on the road. The townspeople watched the procession with curiosity, recognized Lady Alicia and her fiancé. The girl behaved quite confidently but looked a bit fake. He was called the blacksmith everyone talked about, and he was quite young. The woman greeted the aristocrat and praised her for her good appearance. The boy thought that he was not used to such a number of glances, and that this was exactly what it meant to be a nobleman. First of all, the boy wanted to inspect their main candidate. In that cursed place, the girl said discontentedly that the boy was still more interested in him. Faku liked the local conditions the most. They were beyond competition. Moreover, he never thought he could afford a workshop in Kiev within his budget. Besides, Alicia herself was satisfied with this place until she learned about the ghost. It was only necessary to make sure the shop was safe, and then she would feel better. She did not have much in childhood. The mistress asked the maid what she thought about that ghost. The maid herself did not believe in ghosts, but bad rumors circulated about that place. Rumors about ghosts are one thing, but they said that the residents of this house had gone mad, and at night the sound of metal knocking could be heard. The food prepared in advance disappeared, and among the people many other strange things were talked about. Perhaps some rumors are fabrications. The maid decided that, until it was clear whether these were rumors, it was better not to take risks and buy the premises. Pretending to listen to her, he was not sure that it was really as scary as everyone said. They arrived at the place. In front of them stood a rather large building, which looked much more impressive than in the drawings. Alicia considered the shop sinister. The shop was a bit shabby, but quite ordinary, and its appearance added the charm of an old workshop. The girl trembled with fear and could not look at him, so she was offered to wait outside. Alicia clung to the young man and begged him to protect her. She would survive this. Leffe laughed at their behavior. The knights decided to stay outside themselves, but in case of danger, they must be called immediately. When the guys went inside, the room was dark and strange sounds were heard. The fake and Alicia were very frightened when the creak became louder and footsteps were clearly heard. Someone was coming down the stairs, called Alicia, then he fully appeared and saw the young man. He was also recognized. Everything was staged. The unexpected acquaintance was surprised that the buyer of the building turned out to be a fraud. Now everything became clear to him. The name already seemed familiar then, but since the address was from the Barnasto house, he could not expect it. The buyer was Mr. Fake. The young man was surprised that he was addressed so respectfully. He did not think that someone would change the form of address. Probably it happened due to the difference in status. This is how an aristocrat is formed. It turned out that Rig was a merchant who owned the house. He repaid the hero's comrades differently. The girl in the mask turned out to be Lady Alicia. She confirmed that the young man was her fiancé. An acquaintance recalled a conversation with the hero when they were negotiating the price, and tension and anxiety were visible on his face. In a moment, he took off his hat and bowed his head, asking for forgiveness. That man did not know about their relationship and behaved rudely. They forced him to raise his head. The girl added that they were the ones hiding their statuses, and if Rig still hadn't guessed anything, for her that meant complete success. The young man supported his fiancée and asked the acquaintance to communicate with them as before, but he refused, although he appreciated their kindness. The young man decided to get down to business because they came to inspect the premises. The buyers were surprised that he would show them everything himself, as they had not planned this. It turned out that just before their arrival, Rig was cleaning. He did not expect them to come so early. The guests apologized. They just wanted to see the store in person, so they came immediately. The guy still insisted on his candidacy if they did not mind. They curbed their greed and decided to rely entirely on him. They got to work. The young man showed ahead where they were standing. There was a trading platform. Shelves, racks, and all equipment for goods remained in place. This turned out to be convenient for the buyers. The young man was already thinking that it was enough just to buy the goods and immediately open the store. Behind the counter was the entrance to the storeroom. Other doors led to a corridor with several empty rooms. They approached huge double doors, leading to the smithy attached to the main building. Overall, everything was quite old, but the equipment and tools were still in place. Alicia was delighted with such incredible equipment. It seems the previous owner was also seriously passionate about blacksmithing. They were right to say that the first owner of this house was the legendary blacksmith. Rig was surprised that he did not know about such a blacksmith. People said that his skills were not inferior to the founder of the Barnasto house, and they constantly competed with each other, thereby improving their creations. Fake was surprised that her fiancé even knew about this. The girl explained that she knew, but did not go into details. She only heard that he mass-produced incredible weapons. Rig added his knowledge. The creations of the legendary blacksmith Bali are extremely valuable, and some of them have survived to this day, despite the bad reputation surrounding them. In old age, this master worked obsessively, almost to madness. Alicia recalled the cursed weapon. Rig told a story about the Bistelu swords, which people considered cursed creations. Fake had also heard about them. There were rumors that these blades were dangerous. It was a weapon that absorbed the anger of its creator or owner and could distort the mind of the one who possessed them. The boy pointed to the wall where a sword hung. It was one of Bistel's works. Fake was looking at the blade when suddenly he felt something strange. Alicia was worried if her fiancé was okay, but he reassured her and confirmed that everything was fine. For a moment, a sharp pain pierced the young man's head. Maybe it was just his imagination, and he began to doubt. Rig noticed this and decided that the blacksmith might not need to buy this place. He was asked why he thought so, and if he had also heard rumors about ghosts. This story happened before that man bought the workshop. The blacksmith who bought it earlier went mad, and after that could no longer practice the craft. Fake was stunned and could not believe it. The reason remained unknown. They even turned to the church. A saint examined both the sword and the building, but no one found anything. The curse can be weakened by magic, and the saint could even completely remove it, but many cursed blades remained as they were. Their power grew, and only an owner with a strong will could tame them. The guys looked at the blade and did not know if it was really cursed. Rig did not know this. Bastille bequeathed that it be displayed here, and the king at that time, being indebted to him, allowed the sword to remain. The hero doubted whether the rumors and the curse were real. So far there was no clarity. Then it was time to inspect the living quarters on the second floor. The young man thought that if he opened a workshop there, he would have to stay overnight on site. Inside it was spacious. All amenities were available. The rooms were equipped. It was even suitable for housing guards. It was definitely the best option among all they considered. The inspection was completed. Rig asked what Fake thought about the building. Apart from the bad reputation, the conditions were excellent. The young man liked everything very much, but they wanted to consider other options, so he asked for some time to think. The seller agreed to wait for their decision. Leif, I will voluntarily escort the young couple to the next place. Then they inspected a few more places. Somewhere the forge was spacious and the storage cramped. Somewhere the opposite. There were living quarters, sometimes there were none. Although the equipment was good, the appearance was too unremarkable. Bastille's workshop, all others seemed like a compromise, uninspiring, and the prices were too high. You need a combination of conditions and price. It was only in that place, and all because of its uniqueness. The worst was the location. All other spots were far from the street of adventurers. Attracting clients would be difficult. If the forgery was from a famous master, it wouldn't be a problem. For a nameless blacksmith like him, it could become an obstacle. Returning, the maid asked the boy if the Bastille's workshop was still his favorite. He agreed, so to speak, but he was also interested in their opinion about it. Leif, I knew that if you put aside prejudice, the conditions there were the best. Alicia thought so too, but when she remembered the curse or the ghost of Bastille, she became uneasy. The maid was also worried about their safety. In any case, the boy would gladly ask him how it feels to work in Enville. After all, the master was a legendary blacksmith whose name was remembered to this day. The girl cried, saying that the forgery could be damaged or cursed, and in the worst case, might not work, and then Leify suggested learning more about the history of the forge. If they confirm that it is safe there, Alicia will also give her consent. She wanted to create better conditions for the groom's workshop. He thanked Alicia even for considering such an option, but the girl did everything for him. Bastille's Forges does not want to waste time. When they approached, they noticed a man. It was not Sir Rig, and Alicia immediately got scared. The girl turned to the guests. It was Alma. She greeted the Fae whom they had not seen for a long time. Then she greeted his fiancé, learned about it from the mentor, but could not believe that the girl in the mask turned out to be Alicia. Alma was embarrassed. Probably she behaved inappropriately, so she apologized to her. Alicia assured her not to worry, but recalled one inappropriate incident between them, which was much more serious for her.